excuse me, the people on the live stream. So you just missed a very short introduction.
But it was
So-
very important.
But we also want to open the master classes to filmmakers that are not a part of the fellowship, but they can have access to it as well, of this amazing knowledge that's being passed on.
I feel like anybody who's online who doesn't know about the fellowship should know about the fellowship, and I'd love for you to elaborate a little bit more about how they can know about it and get involved with Filmgate, even if they're not local here.
Okay, cool. So I'll thank you for that. I'll recap it very quickly. So basically, Filmgate, as you know, it's an organization that supported independent filmmakers for the last 14 years through different programs. And this year, it's really exciting that we launched the Feature Film Fellowship, where 12 scripts won to be a part of the Feature Film Fellowship. They're amazing scripts. They're all South Florida filmmakers. Actually, no, we have Florida filmmakers. We have a couple that are from up north. And we are really excited that they will give our region a voice again, we hope, like you do. And some of the feature fellows are here, some of them are online, but the idea behind it is that we will help them along the way with different master classes that teach them. First, we started with, of course, perfecting the script. Now they're doing rewrites. Now we're starting to get into, if you had been a short film filmmaker, how do you now transfer that knowledge into feature filmmaking? It is, as I was telling Freddie, it's a marathon, but it's like harder than running a marathon, I feel. So, how do you prepare yourself for this? And then, of course, the really important parts of how do you break down the script, line producing, how do you fundraise, how do you cast? I think it's about time for them to start casting, and then also how to fundraise and package your script. And then in September, they will do a live pitch in front of a live audience at the Silver Spot Theater. And then we'll have industry people in the crowd as well. But a panel of judges will pick 2 winners that will get $100,000 each. But we hope that all 12 films get made, not just the ones that win the seed money. So we are also learning along with our fellows on how to fundraise public and private, and I'm sure you have a lot to add to that, Elaine, as well. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you to Elaine Del Valle, who is, it's like beyond the triple threat. Because, yeah, I think 5 maybe now. So she's a writer, actor, director, producer, and a casting director. Have I missed something? In theater, television, and film, I should say. So, Elaine, would you mind saying a little bit about your journey that got you here, and then we'll talk about how your short film, Brownville Bread, now is a feature film that was distributed across theaters in the United States and internationally.
Yes. So I'm Elaine Del Valle. I began my career as an actor. Like most actors, we get very frustrated at the lack of opportunities. And while I was doing very well commercially in all the commercial markets, I was like, in all the commercials, I was like, I started very young, so I was like, first I was the sexy girl, and then I was the young mom, then I was the old mom. Now I'm like the grandmother. But I did very well commercially, but I was very frustrated at the lack of opportunities, great juicy roles. I was getting co-star roles, but never even in the sphere of being able to get those bigger opportunities. And so while I was studying acting, I was studying at Win Handman Studios at Carnegie Hall, which is a professional acting class twice a week. And in between that, you have to rehearse for everything. So it was really a fully immersed class working with other acting professionals, not like people who were aspiring. They were already working. And through that class, after a couple of years, I started developing my own work, and I developed a one-woman show. That was Brownsville Bread. It was actually based on my true coming-of-age story, and it ended up winning all of the festivals that I joined it in, and I knew that I was onto something. At first, it was just like for me and for my class, and then I started to learn the impact of what it was giving to the audiences and how much that meant to them and how much it meant for me, and it was sort of fueling my desire to keep it going. And so I continued the route of the one-woman show. I did it for many years. Everyone who saw it brought other people to see it, or like invited me to do it at their corporation, their schools. It really took on a life of its own. And eventually, when I couldn't get the right people to like come see it all the time, and it went off Broadway, the New York Times wrote about it. It was really, really very well received for years. But at the end of the day, it's one woman on a stage that has to fill a theater, as opposed to like 20 actors or 10 actors on a stage that has to fill a theater. All the actors bring all their family, all their friends, right? I was one person. And when a casting director goes to see performances, you know, casting directors get invited. I'm a CSA casting director as well. Casting directors get invited to showcases all the time. They get invited to plays, we get free tickets for stuff, and the first thing that I ask the people who invite me is how many people are in the play? Because if I'm going to come and watch a play, I don't just want to see one person. I know that I like the one person within 15 minutes. I don't have to stay there for 90 minutes. But if I can see a full play with a lot of people, that saves me time and it gives me the opportunity to really see other actors. And so it's harder to get industry to come to a one-woman show to take you under consideration than it is for a full play. And so with that, I started writing for things that I could produce. And the first thing that I wrote was a web series. And I decided to use the other people in my class, and it was a comedy. It was called Reasons Why I'm Single. Reasons, the letter Y, I'm single. And that was a very long time ago, before like web series was respected and popular. And I wrote it, I cast it, I was in it, I was producing it, I was getting the locations, I was hiring the cinematographer. The cinematographer was hiring his crew that we needed, the sound people, and then no one wanted to direct it. They just thought, I'm too good for this. So I had asked every director that I had worked with as an actor, and they just thought, I'm not gonna bring myself down to the web series level. And then I told another friend about it, who was a director, and I said to her, here's what it is, would you direct it? She said, tell me the whole thing. How do you see it? And I told her everything, and she said to me, Elaine, it's clear to me that you are the director. You already know what you want, so just direct it. And then I did, and I absolutely fell in love with the craft of directing. And I hardly even knew what I was doing, except for this is what I want to see. This is who I want in it. This is how I want it to play out. And I had already written it, so it just came very natural to me. And then when the first 3 episodes that I did all at once came out, they cost me $5,000 to produce, and I even edited it, which I highly recommend that everybody here edit their own stuff. Not with a feature so much, but it really helps for you to be able to edit and understand the transitions. I think that's one of my very strong points as a director. If you watch Brownsville Bred, which is now available on Tubi for free, you can really lean into just watching how I go from scene to scene. And I really marvel at, like, wow, look how I did that. And from this scene to that scene to that scene. And I love it. I'm very proud of it. So anyway, so I became a director by default. And after the first 3 episodes came out, everyone who I had asked to direct it that said no, then reached out to me and said, can I direct the next episode? At which point I said, no way. Like, these are mine. And I started writing them more at length instead of like these 1 to 2 minute morsels. I started writing the characters out a little bit more and giving them more to do and giving them more of a point of view. And I just wanted to make it bigger. And every time I did that, I did like a 6-minute episode, a 4-minute episode, a 9-minute episode. And then the next episode that I was going to do, I was super excited about. And I wish that I had done it right now. I could tell you that, because all the little girls that I was, it was going to be a Mother's Day episode. And it was the 3 girls who were playing the leads, including myself. And we were visiting one of their moms, and we were going to go into our childhood of what made us how we how we were, like what were the things that were so terrible about the things that really were leaning into why we were single, like those things why we can't have relationships. They were all encrusted in what happened to us as children. And so I was in the process of casting the children, and I found the most wonderful children, some of which are famous people today. So I really wish that I had made those, just to have had those kids in my series and have directed them. They were amazing. But I didn't do it because at the time I was doing panels like this, and I was asked to do one for Warner Bros. HBO or Time Warner, something like that. And I was sitting on a panel beside a great director named Rashad Ernesto Green, and I was telling him about the web series. And I remember at that time, no one really, respected web series so much. And he said to me, Elaine, if you're serious about directing, stop making web series and make short films. And get them into the festival circuit so that then you can understand all the films on the festival circuit and really watch the next generation that's coming up. And I love that advice, and I actually didn't make the episode, and instead I spent that money on my first short film. And very proud of it. Actually, one of the people that started it is Berto Colon, who's like in everything now. He's in the new Dutton Ranch series. He was in I can't remember the series, but just now on Prime about the CIA agent. It's the second season or something like that, but he's great. And I got to say, like, I work with that guy because I could see the talent early on. In casting, you don't need a big star to have a very talented actor on screen. You should be able to notice from the audition process, like, wow, this person deserves to be seen. And that's one of the greatest joys for me in making films, is actually being able to amplify those actors that are so great, like kind of like what I wish people had done for me, to put me in their work so that they can like show what I can do, because that's what actors want to do. They want to show what they can do. So anyway, I made my first short film. I put it on the festival circuit. It got into very few festivals, but it actually won like a Best Directing Award at the Newark Film Festival, and it made me feel like I was on the right track. And then I started applying to programs, the big directing programs, like the American Film Institute Directors Women's Workshop is I want to say it's an 8 to 12 week program. I'm going to get that all wrong, but it's a few months. It's not like years. And I didn't realize how big it was when I had just started, and I was just like applying to stuff, and I applied with my first iteration of Brownsville Bread as like a short, and they loved it. And I actually got up to like I was like in the last like 16, the round of 16, and then they narrow it down to 8, or the round of 30 and they narrow it down to 15. I forgot what it is, but I made it right up to that last round. And when I went to the interview, I actually happened to be in Los Angeles when they called me for the interview. And I was like, yeah, I'm here, I'll come down. I didn't realize what a big deal it was. And I went down, and I told them all about the film and how proud I was of it. And, like, I went on and on about how they loved the script. They loved the way that I was telling the story. And they wanted me to make it in Los Angeles. Like, it would have to be made in Los Angeles. I'm like, I don't know how I could make Brownsville, Brooklyn from Los Angeles. They were like, oh, give it a chance. Like, we have places like that. I was like, I don't think so, but, I'll do what you need me to do. And at the end of the day, I didn't get it. And I was very like, oh, why didn't I get it? Like this is a great script. They loved me. Like, I was so heartbroken by it. And they offer everyone who didn't get it, those top tier people, advice. After 2 months, they say, if you want to know why you didn't get it, in 2 months, reach out to us and we will tell you, which was extraordinarily helpful. So they told me that the reason why I didn't get it is because it seemed as if Brownsville Bread was the only movie that I would ever want to make. because I was so into it. And I'm like, yeah, I was really into it. Yeah, of course. Should I not be into my work? Like, that's what I was thinking to myself. But, you know, you take the note. And it just so happened that when I got that piece of advice, like right at the time that I got that advice, I had gone to a fringe festival and saw a play. And the play was called Bitch Brow by a brilliant writer named Demetra Karaman. And I loved it so much. And it had nothing to do with Brownsville or being Puerto Rican or anything like that. And I went right up to the writer and I said, I would love to option your script to make this into my next short film. Like, I'm a skilled filmmaker, and I already had, by that time, I had already done another short film that was doing well on the festival circuit called Me 3.769, which I filmed here in Miami. And it was doing very well. And it was actually acquired by HBO. So it put a feather in my cap. I won the HBO Latinx Director Award. Oh, not from that. I won another award from them. And that's what got me 3.769 licensed to them. And so I said to her, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. And she told me, it's already optioned. And I was like, oh no, I really want to tell that story. And why did I want to tell that story? Because when you're making films, when you're first making films, you know, what do they tell you? Anybody? What do they tell you to write about? What you know, right? You write about what you know. So here I was writing about what I know. So Me 3.769 was a Me Too moment in little Elaine's life. She happened to live in Miami, and you know, it was Elaine, Carmen, the aunt. It was all these characters that I know. And it was a great movie. I still love it today. I'm very proud of it. And but I needed to direct what I didn't know. But it still needs to be me. I still need to be able to give Elaine's slant on that particular thing. So Bitch Brow was about two women who meet in an all-night laundromat in the Hamptons. Now, I'm from New York. I know the Hamptons. I lived on Long Island for a lot of my adult life. And it was about these two women who meet in an all-night laundromat. They happen to be from opposite sides of the economic spectrum. So one is a very wealthy girl who's a Hamptonite, socialite, the pearls, the dress, the purse, the Birkin bag, all of that. And the other one works at the all-night laundromat. And they're both there together, and they end up finding a lot of common ground. They both are engaged to be married. They're both, you know, a lot of common ground. Only at the end of it, one of them winds up dead. So it was so intriguing to me, and I like the opposite sides of the economic spectrum for me was fascinating because I know both worlds. I've been the poorest of the poor, and I know wealthy, you know, so I understand both worlds, and I felt like I have so much to lend to this story because so many people expect the murderer to be this person or that person because. And almost if you look at Brownsville Bred or any of my other work, even Me 3.769, there's always a character that you judge by looking at them, and it's always like takes you by surprise what ends up happening. Like it's the last thing you expect from that person. And that's what I found in Princess Cut that was so intriguing to me. And I ended up reaching out to her the next summer and said, hey, is this option available now? And she said, no, not yet. And then the next summer, every time I went to the Hamptons, I thought of it. And it prompted me to reach out to her. Finally, the rights were available, and I adapted it. She said I could have it, and I adapted it. And that ended up winning the HBO Short Film Director Award. And it proved to myself and to other people that this doesn't have to be a story about, you know, urban, Puerto Rican or Latino or anything that you assume would come out of me. It could be something else, and I could direct anything else. And so that was really important to me. So that was another step in my journey to proving myself as a director, and I'm really proud of that film. Also got licensed by HBO. It's called Princess Cut, because the ring was a princess cut, and the girl from the laundromat also wanted a princess cut. But, you know, it was a much smaller princess cut that she was aspiring for than the other one. But really proud of that film as a director. Then my next film, I was a part of a program like this, where it was like a 36-hour film challenge. And people just signed up for, okay, I want to be a part of this challenge. And then they tell you who's going to do what job. So you could have been an actor, a writer, director, producer, associate, craft services. They told you. So thankfully, I was chosen as a director. And they told us at like Friday at like 12 o'clock, they told us what our genre would be and what had to be in it. And then we had writers assigned, and the director was always leading the writers. And then we had actors assigned to it. So they gave us the people to work with. And then I got to, as a director, like lead a team from blank and work on locations, all of the skills that I had been doing already for my own films. I was able to like lead this, it was all women. It was called the Women's Weekend Film Challenge. Now, today it's known as the Moonshot Initiative. But it's the same thing. They get people. You just signed up for it? Yeah. It's a great program because it really like tests you. And I felt so great. Like it was actually the most chill time that I've had, because I've never had like the stress of I've never not had the stress of having to pay people. And this was, everybody was working for free, including myself. And I really learned, I mean, I already knew how resourceful I was from all the other movies. And this is what you guys have to learn. When you are doing a movie, the most important thing is to, I mean, there's so many important things, but really to know your resources and understand that there is a resource all around you. She's a resource, she's a resource, he's a resource. It's just knocking on doors. It's stuff like that. You can be so resourceful, especially in getting locations. I always say, like, you know, production design is so important, right? Because you look at a film, you're like, wow, that's so beautiful, that production. Well, look at Brownsville Bread, and look at the pizzeria as an example. The pizzeria I got for $500. It was right around the corner from my main set. And I basically went inside. I was lucky. It was a Latino owner of a pizzeria. And I spoke to him, and I spoke to him in Spanish. And I said, I'm a filmmaker. I'm an indie filmmaker. I'm making a film. I'm doing it right around the corner. Is there any chance that I could use this in the morning before you open, and then go outside for the rest of the scene after you're opened? And he said yes. And I even had them, like, I even bought food from there afterwards. So it just made our life so much easier. So it's being resourceful like that, knowing what can make your life easier. Why would I choose a pizzeria that's 10 miles away when I don't even have to move my equipment truck if I just do it on the corner? For that matter, when I went to Puerto Rico, my cinematographer and I went scouting. We had a location scout, wonderful location scout that I ended up putting in my movie as well, because he was just such a wonderful character. We were all set, and I knew where I wanted to film, in my father's hometown of Cataño, and I found an Airbnb in Cataño, very modern Airbnb. And it had an upstairs apartment and a downstairs apartment. And so I rented out the apartment for the scout, one of the apartments, and I negotiated with the Airbnb guy that if I brought my film there, that my 2 actors that I would be bringing could stay upstairs, and myself, my producer, my cinematographer would stay downstairs, and I could also, well, I won't get to the costuming yet, but that could be like our main premises where we all are, so we could all leave in the morning to wherever our location is. However, when I got to the Airbnb, is very modern building, and I look outside the window, and there's like the perfect house to be my grandmother's house. And I knocked on the door, and I said, I'm gonna be making a movie here. My father came from this is my father's hometown, and I love your house so much. I would love it so much if this could act as my grandmother's house, and I'll pay you XYZ to do it. And they said yes. So now I didn't have to move my truck at all. And then I made every location that we went to within a mile. Like we could literally walk there to do it. So it became much easier. So this is what I talk about, being resourceful. And like in Princess Cut, you'll see like my house is in it. And then I have a friend's house that's like a few miles away that was on the water. I was like, can I use your house? I just used your backyard and your bathroom. And he was like, yeah, of course, you could even use inside. I was like, no, I don't want that responsibility. Yes, yes.
How many days did you shoot Brownsville Bed?
Oh, well, that's a long story because if anybody saw the short, which won at Filmgate here for the year end, if anybody saw the short, that particular short was 6 days of shooting. 3 days on, 1 day off, 3 days on. And, but for the feature film, I actually used that short as my beginning because I didn't have any money to waste and I couldn't reshoot it. I didn't want to reshoot it. And I just didn't have the money to do another 6 days. I used it as the first act.
So that's a perfect question. Actually.
Yes.
And then you will answer.
But then I'll say, and then it was another 15 days. 9 days in New York.
15.
So the 6 days was first. And in like, I forgot what year, but let's say it was 2021. And then it was 9 days in New York in August of 2023 and 6 days in Puerto Rico in December of 2023. And then I put the movie together. So altogether, 21 days, but interspersed. So the movie is 90 minutes. So the last 75 minutes was shot in 15 days.
Nicely done. So we can go back to the beginning because it started with a short film, Brownsville Bread. What clicked that could be a feature? Because not all shorts could be a feature. And then how did you translate it into a feature as a script?
Oh, Lord. Okay, so don't let me forget these questions, please. Okay,
for
you'll have to
the
repeat
audience.
them.
So what clicked for you that Brownsville Bread could be a short film that could be turned into a feature film, and how did you translate it script-wise from a short film to a feature film?
Oh my. So it's a bit of a long story, and like remember it was a one-woman play, right? So the one-woman play had the full arc, which is really the father-daughter journey until the father's death, untimely death. And so I knew that was the story that was already impacting the audiences that, made it so popular as a stage play. And really, that's the story that I wanted to tell. It's not like all about Elaine's journey. It's really what she learns through the death of her dad and being able to reunite with someone that she was estranged from that really like rocked her world. The story is about a young girl who loves her dad. Who saw it here? Okay, great. Okay, no, the full feature. Okay, all right. So the full feature is, like I said, available on Tubi, but it's a young girl who loves her dad so much. She's a little embarrassed because he's a salsero. He loves salsa music. He's a singer-songwriter. It's what he plays every day. Her ears are like bleeding from this salsa music. She doesn't want it because she lives in Brownsville and she's a hip-hop girl from, urban streets, mostly a black community. So being Puerto Rican is like kind of the last thing that she wants in her life. But in their house, my father had painted the entire wall with a Puerto Rican flag. So this is the beginning of Brownsville Bread, where you get to know them and who they are. But she loves her dad no matter what because he's just like a star. He sings to her. He loves her. There's so much joy, and he was such a great human. So charismatic. And then we come to find out in the first act, in the short, that he struggles with addiction, with heroin addiction, which was big in the 1980s, especially in my old neighborhood. So so anyway, that's the first act. So I knew that that short film was just going to show you like up to there. And then I had to, like in the play, have her grow up a little bit, because after that happens and she kind of loses her dad and he's arrested and he goes away for a little while, she's estranged from him and she really doesn't want anything to do with him. But then the second act picks up, she's older. So we wake up, when she wakes up from the nightmare that she has after being so traumatized, she wakes up as a teenager, and that's how the feature continues. So I couldn't afford to reshoot the first pages, and I knew that I was just going to move forward. Also, at that time, remember I said I was trying out for programs, so I still, to this day, try out for programs all the time, and really because they've helped me so much in my journey. They give me the seed money, and they give me the fortitude to even put in my own money, which I have put in my own money to make Brownsville Bread whole. But I also have fiscal sponsorship, all of that. But when I was first making Brownsville Bread, I had the attention of somebody from HBO, and I had read about that this 150 Foundation program was available to filmmakers, and that they would give filmmakers some seed money to make a proof of concept. And so I used their seed money to make the first act, always with the intention of continuing it. And then I put that on the festival circuit, and we ended up winning at like South by Southwest. We won at Filmgate here. We won many places. We won, and it really showed people like, look, this is a great. I'm a great director. This is a great story. Help me to continue this story, and it helped to build my fan base. People really loved the short film, or it articulated for me that I was growing as a director, which is what every film as a director needs to do for you. That's how you choose your material. What's going to show how you've grown as a director? You can't just keep doing the same thing, because that's how they put you in a, like I was as an actress, always on a commercial smiling. You don't want to be pigeonholed. But that's what the industry does to you. If you're working in comedy, they're going to want you in comedy. If you're working in drama, they want you with that. If you're working with kids, it's just what it does. And that's fine. It's up to you to choose your next material and how you're going to move forward with that. So tell me the question again, because I know I didn't answer some of that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have a unique, every filmmaker have a unique journey, right? So far we found out that you had the short already,
Mhm.
because you didn't have enough financing. You started with the short, and then
You're not on.
you.
You're muted.
Is it okay now?
Yes.
Excuse me. Thank you. Okay. So you have a very unique journey, because you had a short film that won, which is, like that's what you would want your short film to be known across festivals. But then, because you didn't have enough funding, you built on that short film. So you didn't start from scratch. You built on the short film. But how do you expand a short film into a feature film and sustain that momentum? You sustain. You don't make it just filler, but also it's action. It's a really great script as a feature film, not just as a short film. So if you could speak to that, like how did you make it into a feature film script that people wanted to fund?
So I already knew the arc because of the play, but in writing as a feature, every medium deserves its own it needs what it needs. As a play, it needed what it needed, and then later on, I should say that I actually adapted the play as a book. So right now, Brownsville Bread is also a young adult novel that you can buy on Amazon, and it's even being taught in schools. I'm a Department of Education vendor, and hundreds of books go to schools, and I go talk at the schools where they're reading the book. So you see what I'm building, actually, I'm building the intellectual property that is Brownsville Bread. It's very important, because guess what? You can self-publish your book. I did, and it won the international, I don't know, look it up. But it won like big awards, the book, and I self-published the book. Because people didn't want, the publisher that the packager that originally wanted me to do the book, they couldn't love it more than they did. And they could never get it approved by the higher ups at like a Sterling Publishing and stuff where it was like presented. They loved it. They loved the play, they loved me, they loved the sample chapters, but they didn't want to tell that dark story. And I'm like, Bambi's mother dies. Like Lion King, like these are dark stories. And ultimately, you know, Elaine is just a kid trying to figure it out, trying to figure herself out, which is identity is what all of these coming of age stories are about. So I decided after the sample chapters were so great, but it was under-received by the people who had the power to elevate it, I decided that I would elevate it myself. So I self-published it during COVID, and building the intellectual property. So the book needed what it needed for the book. And now if you saw the play, or even if you don't see the play, if you read the book, it's also on Audible, and I narrate it in the way that I did the play, in that girl's voice, like 301 Sutter Avenue, between Rockaway and Mother Gaston. Like that's the voice of that young girl. That's who I was on stage, and that's how I narrated it. And then when I was making the film, it needed what it needed. And then also, I could not afford to do the things that were in the book and in the play. For example, it was based on my real life. The incident that made me have to go see my father and be with my father in Puerto Rico, get sent to my father, was that I was severely beaten in a gang initiation during a Run DMC concert at Madison Square Garden. I couldn't afford Madison Square Garden to reenact the Run DMC or, you know, the crowd of it all, right? But what could I do? I knew the incident had to be that she got beaten up severely, that sent her to Puerto Rico, that made her mother halta. You know, she was, that's it, no more, you're done. And I had to create that. So how did I create that? With the 3 girls in the pizzeria that was around the corner from the holding, right? And my main set. And yeah, I took another part of my life that wasn't even in the play or the book. It was a bullying thing that happened to me. I took another part of my life and I put it into there. And, you know, the audience that knew the play and the book was very surprised at how that happened. And also, my Aunt Elizabeth, she just recently passed away, may she rest in peace, but she was differently abled. I don't even know how to say it now. There's always like special needs, differently abled. When I was a kid, we would say mentally retarded. That was just a term used. There was an association called the Association for the Help of Retarded Children. That was like the real 501c3 association. So that's how we used to say it when I was a kid. But Elizabeth was a big part of my life in the movie, but in the book, she's hardly there. In the play, she's hardly there. But for the movie, she facilitated what the movie needed, because the protagonist, as a young girl, it's very hard to make a teenager lovable, because a teenager, all they care about is themselves. Elizabeth was born from truth, is truth, and I took that relationship and I used it to help my protagonist be the strongest that she can be, which is very important in the writing. In the writing of anything. I also wrote a pilot for CBS called The System. I created this idea. They put me in development. I wrote a pilot, sold it to CBS, and when I first sold them the idea of the system, it was about a child social worker who worked in Brownsville and grew up in the foster care system herself. And she couldn't, she helped all the people around her, but she couldn't help her own child. And that's what the system is about, like the pilot episode. It's a wonderful pilot. And when I was in development with CBS, they said to me, the second in command, because my first in command was obviously, my protagonist was obviously the social worker, but her sidekick was a youth officer. When I was in high school, I had an internship at the 69th Precinct in Canarsie, Brooklyn, where I was the youth officer assistant. And they dealt with all the truant kids. So I'm very familiar with that world. So I wanted to include it in the system. But when I was selling it at the time to CBS, they said to me, we love this, we love everything about this thing, only we're selling a show that is, not every hero has to be a cop or a firefighter. It could be a social worker. That's what this show is. So if we are selling this show, how do we make her her second in command a cop? They didn't want that. So they said to me, you got to come up with something else. Everything else can stay, but you got to come up with something else. I was like, oh, Lord, but this is the world that I actually know. And then I just thought really deeply, who brings out the best or worst in my protagonist? Who is that person? And that's how I'm going to create that character. And that's exactly what I did. And they loved it. They loved Carly Gold so much that after it didn't get greenlit to actually make the pilot, they said that they would consider a pilot if Carly Gold is the lead. If I made it around Carly Gold. I was like, wow, okay, good to know. And I know exactly how that would go. I didn't write that. I didn't want to write that, but maybe I should. But anyway, you see, it's like you have to choose what's best for your protagonist, because your job is to really take care of your protagonist, and that's always messing up their lives as much as possible. That's how you take care of them.
Could you talk about the sales aspect a little bit more, like selling to CBS, that whole relationship, or maybe the sales of some of the features that you made as well?
Oh my God, that's everything is different. Every deal is different. And for me, I'll tell you the story of the system. I have been acting for many, many years, and lots of people that I came up with are now kind of sort of famous. They have shows, they're second in command or something, and they're great. And like, I know them from before, so they know I'm not trying to ride their coattails or anything. Like, I genuinely believe in them. I genuinely, so like, they know I'm genuine. They trust me, and I trust them, and I feel comfortable with them. So when I was first writing the deck for the system, I was in another program. I took a Sundance lab, and the Sundance lab was how to write your first pilot. And through that lab, I really learned what the pilot needs. And that's how I developed the first part of that. Now, when I was doing the deck for that, I wanted to visualize the story, and the only person, or the best person that I thought was right for that, was someone that I knew that was already, she played Gina Rodriguez's mom in Jane the Virgin for however many seasons, and Andrea Navarro. And I happened to text her, and I just said to her, I'm using your face on my deck. Like, I don't need her permission. I could use anybody's face on my deck, right? But sincerely, I knew this woman's soul. I know her as an actress, and I felt like, okay, I see what she's doing, but I know what she can do. And I kind of wanted to show the world what she can do in the system, in my head. Anyway, so I just texted her, and I said, I'm using your face on my deck for something that I'm developing through the Sundance Lab. And she said to me, can I read it? And she read it, and she loved it. And then she, after the last season of Jane, she optioned it from me. And I said, we can do it for absolutely $0. And we bring it together. And the idea was that she was going to tap her showrunner, which is exactly what we did. We tapped her showrunner. She texted her showrunner and said, hey, I have this, I'm working on developing a series. I'm the lead in it, and I really love it. And would you give it a read? And she read it, and she loved it. And she was what they call a producer with a development deal, a producer with a development deal on the lot. Jenny Erman Snyder is her name. And because of the relationship that she had with Andrea and with Andrea and the respect that she had for her, and then she also loved the script, and she was like, I want to do this. And as a producer with a deal on the lot with CBS Studios, she's mandated to bring anything that she wants to do to CBS Studios first. They can decline, and then she could bring it anywhere else. But they have the right of first refusal to anything that she had started. So she brought it to the studios, and then the CBS Studio, gets a chance to bring it to a network, the CBS network, or anywhere else. They could develop it anywhere else. But the studio loved it and decided that they wanted to develop it with the network. And then I had to pitch to first I had to pitch to the studio, then I had to pitch to the network, and then they loved it and they greenlit it for development, and that's how that deal happened. And in advance of all of that, before they even brought it to the studio, we had to pre-negotiate the terms, because the studio did not want me to hold hostage something that they wanted. So like if they wanted it and like I said, no, I want $5 million for it, that wasn't gonna happen. So we pre-negotiate in advance with lawyers, have all the terms, have everything, what the pay amount would be. It's called an if-come deal. If this happens, then that happens. And so that's how I got that deal. They put me together with a showrunner, and then I got notes from the studio, notes from the network, and then I had to take all those notes and write it into the pilot that they wanted, which for me, it was a great pilot, but it was a little homogenized from the original version. The original version was serialized more, which means that you follow her and things happen in her life and things change, right? Where what we developed was a serialized, yes, but it was more procedural, which is what, the Law and Order. It's like everybody's there, and then here are the cases. And the cases really take precedent. And this allows a show to go on and on and on and on, because you got all these cases, and you don't have to serialize the protagonist and the other people as much. So we made it very usable as a procedural, which in my opinion sort of homogenized the original idea a bit and didn't make it as juicy. Like I couldn't even visually, it wouldn't even, like there's premium, what you see on Apple TV, on HBO, like you watch The Pit, you watch Euphoria, you're like, wow, that's like, oh my God. And then you watch, like a CBS show and you're like, this looks like I did it on VHS. That's how I feel as a director looking at things. Like I don't find it as cinematic, but I felt like the original system was so gritty and it needed that. But anyway, I wrote it. It was the biggest paycheck I ever got in my life, for one thing. And so that was that deal. And the film was entirely different. Everything is so different with the film. With the feature, I made it independently. I used the grant that I got from Warner Media 150 Foundation, and then after I had made it, they gave me another grant because they loved it so much that they gave me more money to help me make it. And I stored that money into the LLC for the film, and the LLC, I just wanted to grow that until I knew I had enough to film the next part. And I kept applying for things, applying for grants. I won a script contest. I won some money at Series Fest. And I had a fiscal sponsor. I joined up with a fiscal sponsor, which I know Filmgate also offers fiscal sponsorship. Why don't you talk about the fiscal sponsorship aspect so that the audience can understand what a fiscal sponsor is and what they do, and then I'll continue from there.
For sure. So thank you. Now we have, fiscal sponsorship is when you have an organization like Filmgate, which again. Hello. Okay. Okay. So fiscal sponsorship is when an organization like Filmgate is a 501c3. You could utilize that. Yes. You could utilize that as, so if anybody donates to you, especially if somebody can benefit from a tax break when they donate to you, you can use Filmgate to run the money basically through Filmgate, and then Filmgate gives it back to you. And so let's say you have a really wealthy friend, or not so wealthy, maybe they're like middle class, they pay lots of taxes, they're a lawyer, attorney, doctor, for example. They could donate $50,000 to you through Filmgate, and Filmgate gives it back to you, and then Filmgate gives that person a tax receipt. And now with the new tax code, and I'm still researching it, but from what I understand, the new tax code that the president has implemented, it's almost a 1-to-1. It used to be 75% that you get as a tax break. Now you almost get the entire 100% as a tax break. So that's really, really cool for you.
Right, so that's really important because when you're asking for money, that's hard, right? Like you're asking your friends for money, you're asking people you don't know for money, but it's really important to know that wealthy people, they have to give away money. Either they give it away to a charity or the government is going to take it. So that's kind of useful for you to know when you're asking, because it sort of makes it feel like it's okay. You know, like I don't have to be so humble about it. Like, hey, do you want to donate to my film? And you don't have to pay that money back. They don't get any credit for it. They're not an investor. What they are is a supporter. And you put them on the credits, and you thank them, and you invite them to things, and they can be on sets. You could say, hey, come to my set whenever you want, you know, and do things like that. They don't have to be an investor. And that, I think, is a great thing. I used Fractured Atlas. So I can tell you about that particular thing. You just sign up with them. I'm sure it's the same with Filmgate. You sign up with them. The 501c3 charitable organization that you're signing up through, they do take a small percentage of it, but then the rest of it you go. And then it has to go into a separate account. So like Brownsville Bread LLC, I had the funds that I was given through grants and through my own savings. And then I had the specific just for those funds, because just for those funds that I got through the fiscal sponsorship, because every time I asked for those funds, I had to actually provide them with a receipt or an invoice to say, this is what I'm paying my editor, I need this money, and then they would, I think it was within 2 business days, it was put into that specific LLC bank account.
Yeah, you can do it that way where it's specific, where Filmgate can write checks directly to the crew and cast, or it could be in your specific LLC account, so we immediately transfer it as it comes in. And to add to this, we found out with a short film that we fiscal sponsored a few months back, but she was really smart to get her friends that worked at organizations and companies that match donations. So let's say Disney matches, Netflix matches, some of the banks match, which means that if, let's say one of her friends donates $5,000, Disney would match it double. So it'll be $10,000 extra.
Yes, I
So if
had
you
that
have-
as well. Yeah, I had
so you
someone
have-
give me $500 that worked for an insurance company, and they matched it. So it was like their
company matches.
500 is not just tax deductible for them, but now their company is giving me 500, and I just got $1,000, and it's great, right? It makes them feel good, and really those are the things, like you get 100 of those thousands, and now you have $100,000.
So yeah, definitely check out who of your friends or possible donors work in these bigger companies, Apple being one of them. So, sorry, go ahead.
There's no way to do it like retroactively, right? Because my friend surprised me with a donation directly for my last short film. But I feel bad because I want to eventually pay it back because I don't have to.
But did she do it through a fiscal sponsor?
That's the thing, I didn't even know anything about this.
Or can you give them a tax credit for the next one? You can for the next. Don't feel bad, and then for the next one, even definitely.
Tax credit for my next short film.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I don't know those rules, so I can't speak to that. But But I wouldn't do that from the last one. Like, she has
No,
to
I
give
mean,
you money today.
Meant when she, if
Oh,
she
yes,
donates
yes,
to you the
yes.
next time, that's
And
what I
she
meant.
should donate through a fiscal sponsorship. Yes, and they're very easy to sign up for. And you have to give them an annual reporting as well, and, you know, you're responsible for the taxes at the end of the day, but at the end of the day, your film is spending it, so your film company is, and I like to keep everything separate so that it's very easy accounting-wise. I'm very transparent.
By the,
LLC for your film? Because the thing is, I don't have an LLC, I have an Inc. for a company I just started for like a production company.
Right, so I have a production company, I have that, but I always do an LLC for a film. The reason why you need an LLC for the film is not just to create bank accounts specific to the film so that you don't commingle the funds, but you want to be very transparent. You want to be able to do an accounting very easily for it. And God forbid you should get sued. You fold the LLC, you don't fold your company. LLC is its own entity, and it's responsible for itself. You're just someone who manages the LLC. You're not personally responsible.
It's called the corporate veil. So it separates your companies from other companies. Think Warner Brothers or Paramount, all the movies they own. Paramount doesn't get sued, you know, the movie does, and then it furthers you personally from that. So that you as an individual don't exist within all that.
Right, which, by the way, every time you make a film also, you'll want your insurance, you want your errors and omissions insurance, you need all these insurances that go along with it, and those have to be under that entity, and then you become, the entity then gives you a certificate of insurance as well, covering you.
like a sign. So I should add, so our fellows are actually receiving a donation button on our fellowship page, and that you can share with everyone that yes, it's about to go live. And we were going to ask you if you wanted it to go to a specific FilmGate account or directly to you. So if you want to use this as a fiscal sponsor, you can. That means we can give tax break receipts, but it has to come through through our account, or it could go directly to you if they feel better about this as well. Yeah, we'll have a meeting with the fellows
And
as well.
anybody
yes.
who doesn't have an LLC, you don't even need a lawyer to set up an LLC. I did it myself online.
Sunbiz.
Yeah,
Very, very
Sunbiz, it's very
$75.
easy.
Yeah.
Very easy. So you want that. You also want thinking about you want to think a lot in advance of your film, right? I've had 3 films at Sundance now. Every time I'm there or at other major festivals, they have insanely great panels with very successful people that give you the benefit of their knowledge. And some of the things that I learned from those little panels, I take with me all the time, like the value of a poster. But things that I learned now through even with the deliverables, the little things, like now we just, I just produced a documentary that now just won at Sundance. We won at Miami Film Festival, and we're touring the festival circuit now. With that film, I'm like, okay, let's make sure something so silly, let's make sure that we fade up less than 2 seconds at the beginning of the film and fade out less than 2 seconds or around 2 seconds at the end of the film. Why is that important? Because Brownsville Bread starts from black to picture. Intentional choice from the director. But when you're doing deliverables and uploading it to somebody who's going to go to distribution into the different streaming platforms like a Tubi, you must have a 2-second fade up or under 2-second fade up. Otherwise, you have to redo your film. I mean, it's not too much to redo it and do that on that format, but just uploading takes 3 days. If you have a big gig, it still takes 3 days because it's so much information that's going through the web. And then you have to, if your timeline shifts, then your movie's set, so your voices are connected, but you have to create SRT files, which are the closed caption files, in the different languages. So I had to recreate the SRT file, which I did it myself. And the reason why I did it myself, you can pay other companies to do it. The reason why I did it myself originally is because I wanted very much that the Spanish language be authentic to the Puerto Rican culture. So I didn't want AI or somebody from Mexico or Colombia deciding what the Spanish was going to be like or what the interpretation of the Spanish should be like. I wanted to make those decisions. Also, a lot of these companies that do it, when you put it in through English, they don't read the Spanish, so you still have to change it up. But being able to, like myself having this skill, I know it's kind of like very menial work, but I feel proud that I understand that deliverable, can talk that deliverable, and can perform it if I need it and when I need it. So I did the Spanish language SRT and the English language SRT. And the editing, like, we talked about editing your own films. That today, I had an editor work full on Brownsville Bread. And then when I didn't feel like the timing was right, he would send over the scene to me, and then I would do a rough edit with it, and then send it back to him on Vimeo and say, this is more like what I want. And then he would he would follow what I want. For the most part, when I direct, I know exactly how I want it to be edited. That's how I film it. I make it very easy for the editor. I know the transition in and out. And I'm really proud of those transitions. So there have been times that Brownsville Bread has won for best editing in something. And yes, my editor deserves that credit. But I feel very strongly like I'm so proud to have helped facilitate that credit for my editor because I thought of those things while I was filming.
I have a question. I don't want to interrupt the flow. No, it's okay, please. Yeah, I just wanted to hear about your prep time going into that prepping. So did you like storyboard, talk about your shot list?
Yes.
This is a great question because all I hear now from directors are, how can we talk about everything except what directors do?
Yeah, that's why I said, like, I had one person ask me one thing entirely and another director asked me something else entirely. And I'm glad that you said that because that's the reason why I packed this big suitcase of mine. Yes. Well, no, I didn't pack my director's book because I do print everything out. But I also use a program called Previs Pro that really helps me. Now, everyone here, if you're a director, you should know Shot Deck. Everybody knows Shot Deck? Okay, great. For those of you who don't know Shot Deck online, it's basically, Shot Deck has movie stills from like a lot of great movies. So you just put in like night, 2 people, close up, and you can get like the options there. What's interesting about Shot Deck is when I'm using Shot Deck, I'm often like doing it for like Latinos, right? Like Latinos are my cast, but there are no Latinos. Or like very few movies have Latinos in them. So it's hard to show a Latino in the thing. So I'm always like, I wish that Shot Deck contacts me and says, can I have Brownsville Bread for the stills? And I would say, hell yes, because you need it and the community needs it. Especially when you're working with cinematographers who don't know how to color Latinos and Black people. Black people are more prevalent on the platform, so you can, there are great shots that represent the skin tones, but for Latinos, it's not as much. So anyway, I use something called Previs Pro, Pre-Visualization Professional, Previs Pro. It's an app, and it's basically how I storyboard. So, I'm gonna show you my shot list, but basically in Puerto Rico, this is my Puerto Rico shot list. So Puerto Rico, I used a photo from, you can upload photos. So this is a photo from Shot Deck. I'm like, this is what I want to see. I want to see the plane going over the gate. And something like that. It doesn't have to be exactly, right? And this particular program, you can take this camera and you can literally move it around, widen it, and then you get to see what it looks like. You see how this little picture is changing? So like if I move this camera around, I can see what that little picture, what my end result is looking like. Now, that was just a one shot thing, right? Because that was like exterior Puerto Rico. But like here's a scene that has multiple shots. So this is Elaine at the airport. So what do I want to see? You see how I can, this is my whole shot list. I have the wide of the airport with people are going back and forth. You could see Elaine is somewhere in there and how I want to see her. You can affect the focus, where the focus is, and you can affect all kinds of things on this particular program and where the people are. And then you just duplicate the scene because it's based on location, right? Your scenes are based, your shots are based on the location. And you duplicate the scene, and then you have all the shots that you want. And you get to arrange the people and arrange the camera, and it makes it so easy. So like here we have the close-up of Elaine, right? So that's where the camera is. Now I'm gonna go even closer. You see how that's changing? Oy. Right. So you see how that changed? And you can change the, look. So basically I went from this, right, as the wide, and then I just went up to the close-up, and then I can change the angle. And it even shows you the lenses, and you could put in what camera you're using, what lenses you're using, so it helps you. There are other more sophisticated programs that I also use, but I feel like this one is pretty easy to learn, and what's really great is that you get to visualize right there on set or in advance, and when you're working with the scene, right? Every scene is ordered, right? Now this is the way that I want this is the way that I want to shoot, right? Because you always start with the wide, and then you punch in for the close up, and then you go to the other side, right? So that's the way that I want to shoot. But if I wanted to change the order that which it's shot, what you do, which is when you work with your assistant director, when you're choosing your order of the day, the order that which the scenes will be shot, that's all based on time. You know, people who don't know anything about making movies, they're like, oh, then you shot this, and then you shot, they think that it goes in the order of how you're looking at it. But you know, you're doing, on this day, you're doing all the Puerto Rico scenes, and 3 months earlier, you did all the New York scenes, or all the teenage scenes, or all the apartment scenes on this day. And so everything has to be in order of what makes the most sense to schedule. So I AD, with my AD, all of the prep, I do that with the AD. And with my cinematographer, because we need to confer together. First I do it by myself, then my producer and I really talk it out, and then we bring in the cinematographer to say, do you think we got this right? And 95% of the time, we are right. The 5% of the time that he says, well, I gotta tell you why you're wrong, it's great to know why we're wrong, because it might be easier to light this than that during the day. It might, so it's all what he says. Like, and if we want to shoot, for example, if we wanted to shoot the pizzeria scene at 1 o'clock, he would have to say, no, the exterior cannot be shot at 1 o'clock because you're going to have the overhead light. It's not going to look good. It's going to be really hard. We don't have the budget for that sort of overhead shade. We have to depend on if it's cloudy or not, which if you're filming, you always want a cloudy day because it's like automatic nice. Yeah, automatic filter. So that's a lot of prep. I spend a lot of time on prep.
One of the reasons I asked is because I was using a program called Storyboard Quick 6, and it went under, and then I started using Midjourney, which is great because you can make these beautiful panels, but it's extremely time consuming. And when you started your presentation, you said, oh, there's a director, you have 4 weeks to prep, and I'm like, you can't do Midjourney in 4 weeks.
No.
For a feature, right? So I'm
Right.
like, what's quicker? So this sounds like a faster solution.
Well, this actually helps me very much to visualize what I'm seeing. Shot Deck is obviously the best. And with Shot Deck, I'm a very communicative director with features. And especially when I'm working with kids, I'm like, oh, look what we're going to see. And sometimes with Shot Deck, you have like great actors doing, great, you could see the performance in their face. And being able to convey that to the actor is like really important. Sometimes I'm like, oh, this is what we're going for. They're like, oh, okay, I know. Because as an actor, I could say, I have no idea what lens is on that camera. I don't know how close up it is. And most actors don't ask because they're afraid to. right? So as an actor, I'm like, okay, is this the close-up? Is this, and sometimes on television, they're getting more than one thing at once. So, you know, you're working with 2, 3 cameras on television, and so, you know, you have to know which one is the close-up, which one is the most important to play to.
So we're gonna take a short break. I think the battery's on this side.
Okay,
That's why.
and by the
Did you
way,
take-
this is on your computer, you can do it, on your iPhone, you can do it, you can change the order of the day, as you know, it's really amazing, it's a great
So when we-
program.
Sorry, when we come back, we're gonna talk about financing. So that's what we're gonna start with, because I know we've been kind of jumping around a bit. All right, so we're back. Thank you so much for waiting for a little bit. We wanted to get into the financing and the distribution part. Do we have some questions from the audience and fellows that are online that are about script? We'll return to that. So let's jump into fundraising. What makes you ready for fundraising? What should you have in your materials that basically now tells you, okay, I'm ready to go to a funder, to a producer, to show my project?
Okay, has anyone ever donated to a film? Okay, what prompted you to donate to a film? Anybody else? A friend? Liking the filmmaker and the pitch? Where'd you see the pitch? On Kickstarter. And what did they have representing that pitch? A demo? Did they have like a plea video? Like a video that said, hey, I'm such and such, and this is what I'm doing, and help me out, right? So that, I think, is a very important component of your ask, right? Because it prevents you from having to say it over and over and over again. You can literally take the one video that you produce, which I had one. I had one video that I produced that talked about my journey into this film. And what you should answer for any project is why you are the best person to make this film. Why are you making this film? Why is it so important to you? Who's the impact? What do you want to talk about? Why do you think it'll help such and such? Or what makes it so exciting? Or maybe it's a genre. Like if you love sci-fi, like I love, you know, anything that it is that makes you the best person to tell this story, that's what your plea video has to be about. And with and sincere. And I think you really need to work on it and watch other Kickstarter videos, for example. Watch other pitch videos that get people to get involved with projects, because there are some projects that somebody just showed it to me and I was like, I'm in. And I didn't even know the people, right? Somebody else said because they're friend. Yes, so you're gonna ask all your friends, but then you're also going to have this pitch video to ask anyone and everyone, anyone who you meet. I know, I'm forgetting his last name, but I think his name is Leron. It doesn't matter, but he directs for a lot of television now, a lot of it. And he raised $1 million all by phone calls. Yeah, all by phone calls for his first feature. What? You know the telethon? No, not a telethon. He literally just called people, and some of them were cold calls. And it's like, you know, can you give me $10? Just $20. You know, in my pitch video, I think I said, you know, for Facebook, on Facebook, for example, you know how it's your birthday? Everybody's wishing you a happy birthday. So I put, you know, if anybody's ever wanted to buy me a cup of coffee, please give the $5, $7, depending on the coffee, right? To my campaign. And they did. And, you know, they didn't just give the $5. They gave $25, $100, $200, $250, $500. Everybody gave something different. But just from me asking if you wanted to buy me a cup of coffee for my birthday, please donate to this. And that's always how I was able to raise more money. My birthday, Mother's Day, you know, whatever it was, I would always just put it out like that, because you're asking for so little and they're just gonna give you whatever. Like, what difference does it make to them if it's $5 or $25 or $50, right? If they wanna take you out for a cup of coffee or a lunch, that's what they're doing. So you have to make it easy on people to give, which is why fiscal sponsorship is so great, because you get to say, and it's tax deductible. And if you have a matching company, and they get to feel like they're doing even more. And you give them a thank you on your credits. Or you know, for this amount, you can come to set. You can give incentives. Or in my case, you know, I just said, this is how I started out, and then I showed video of like me on stage doing Brownsville Bread, and then how I wrote the book, and then I showed video of me like reading out loud, and then I showed video of, or pictures, stills of like kids in schools now reading my book, and me like teaching it at schools, and that like helped them to be on the journey with me. And then sometimes I would take someone who gave me a major donation, and I would say to them, do you have any friends that I can share this video with that you can introduce me to online? I'll write the email, and you just cut and paste it and send it to your friends. And I raised a lot of money that way. People gave me $5,000 each because this person said, I gave $5,000. Will you join me in this? This is a, you know, so this is like, if they trust that person, oh, go to like one of these big charity events. Somebody's like, $500, $500, $500. They're all like feeding into it that it's for the good of it, right? So that's what you want to create. And you can create that through your biggest funders. You know, I think Huracan, right? His dad was the director of Huracan. I was here at Filmgate when he talked about it. His dad is a judge, right? So I know, unbeknownst to any of that, I happen to know a lawyer that was a friend of mine that said, oh, I'm a producer of Huracan. I said, wow, you're a producer of Huracan? Oh my God, that's so great. Oh yeah, I didn't care. I just, you know, I just gave him some money. I knew his father. So you see, it's like who you know and who that person knows. Who can you tap that they know? And same thing with locations. Like I was sitting at I was invited to a holiday dinner. And it was all people that weren't here in Miami, that didn't have family at the time there. So they came to this dinner as like people alone going to this holiday dinner. And so you got to sit next to a bunch of strangers. And, you know, everybody's like, what do you do? What do you do? You know, getting to know one another during a wonderful dinner with somebody is the mutual friend. Like this one person had all these people come. So right away, that one person becomes the trust factor. And if you're there, you're in a circle of trust. They're not going to have just anybody, right? You have to really know the person to come to this special dinner. So, so I get to talking to this one person. My friend says, oh my gosh, she's a filmmaker, blah, blah, blah. Her films are amazing. Everything she touches turns to gold, da, 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 da. Really hyping me up, great. And she really believes that. And I almost believe it too sometimes. But anyway, but so the guy, I say to him, what do you do? And he said, well, I develop buildings. But you wouldn't be interested in any of my buildings because they're really bad. Like they're like horrible buildings. Like we buy like the worst building and then we fix it up. And I said, that's exactly what I'm looking for right now. Can I go look at your building? He had a building in New York that was like horrible in his eyes. And I was like, that is so perfect for me. And there were empty apartments. And he let me, I'm not going to say the dollar amount because it was so low. I'll tell you privately, but it was so low. He let me use 3 apartments, plus the lobby, plus the laundry room, all the halls, the elevator, anything that I wanted. It was on a dead-end street for so low. I gave him a minimal amount that just paid basically for the person who cares for the building, the super. And he let me use it for 9 days. and I got to shoot all of my interiors in 3 different apartments within the building. I never had to leave the building. And then when I wasn't using one interior as the location, I was using it as hair and makeup and holding. So that particular thing, I had a magnificent production designer named Mary Markson. My New York production designer was Mary Markson. And a very minimal budget. And she would go get stuff that was being given away, like the piano on Brownsville Bread. We got 2 of those because we didn't want to have, of course, we filmed at different places too, but we got whatever would be delivered for the cheapest. I got a piano for free and then another one for $50. Wow. Yeah. And then like the furniture, she would get stuff for free. We would recycle what we used by just putting a cushion over it. We just did everything that we could within our means. You know, when you're doing Brownsville Bread is an era piece. So it's set in the 1980s and 90s. And the reason why it was important for me to make sure that it was set in that era is because the father at the end of the story dies of AIDS. Now, back then, people were dying of AIDS all the time. But today, people live with AIDS, right? You can live with HIV, and sometimes the medications now, they're so superior that sometimes you test and it's not even in your system, which is incredible, right? So today, would the story make sense in today's world? No, it would not. But so it has to be set in the 80s or 90s. And I know Freddie Rodriguez is making a film set in the 90s or 80s? In the 90s, right? And you know, if somebody told me the premise of something, and they said, well, it's about my coming of age, and this is what the story's about. If it wasn't absolutely necessary for the theme, for it to be set in that era, I would say, please make it of today. Because you are building obstacles instead of bridges. With Brownsville Bread, the little girl, the opening scene, we did it in a park, which I got for $50, right? You pay the Parks and City Department a minimal amount to just be able to be there. And we took the camera, and by choice, you know, you saw the Previs Pro that I used, by choice, we took the camera, instead of pointing it this way so that we see the buildings and everybody around her and the whole neighborhood, right? We really couldn't do that because the cars. And we couldn't afford to lock up the streets, right? So we went from this angle on her to this, right? We pointed that camera up so that we're just seeing her and the buildings. And anything we could control, we put outside of the street. So we had to angle up, even in the fight scene, where we are outside in Queens, modern day, with an elevated train over us. We angled up a lot, or we pointed at the pizzeria instead of to the street, because of the fact that we had to avoid cars. Look, a 1980s television or 1980s record player goes a long way, or telephone goes a long way in setting the tone, interiors, but exteriors, that's really hard to do. And even like with Princess Cut, I remember for Princess Cut, I went online and I got all the clothes online, on like Forever 21. And I got different sizes, and I did that costume design myself. But for Brownsville Bread, obviously I needed more. And the costume designers on Brownsville Bread, I had 2, one in New York, one in Puerto Rico. They really cared. They really cared about their craft being on screen, and they wanted it to be genuine. To like, they were like, well, you can't use that because you could see that the flowers were, you know, this was not done in this way. Like, I don't understand that. That's their craft, and great for them, and great for making my movie so great. But it certainly was much harder to get that vintage stuff than it would have been for me to like go on Forever 21 and just get whatever I wanted in multiple sizes and make it work. But these people cared about their craft, And they did it. They did it to the best of their ability with the budget that I had, and they made my movie all that much better because they were committed that way. So, like, I know our thing was about financing and that, but all of these line items really matter to the bottom line. Because if you think about locations and what they should cost, you really have to strategically try to get things at such a low rate that, you know, you save money here to give it over there. And that's always what's going to happen in the making of a film, any film. And those things that happen that go wrong, those are the greatest things that can usually happen, because a few things. Number one, it teaches you that you can manage that. So every time something goes wrong, the first time you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? In the inside, on the outside, you're like, I got this, right? But on the inside, you're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And you're racking your brain for the solution. Like, how can I make this work if we are shooting all night and now it's pouring rain and I can't get the shots that I need because it's pouring rain and we're exteriors? How am I gonna solve them meeting? What am I gonna choose to film first that I absolutely need for this film? How am I gonna get the actors back for that? And, you know, when all that stuff falls apart, I rationalize and I say, good things fall apart so better things can fall together. And that's what you just have to keep saying to yourself. So if you watch Brownsville Bred and you watch the scene where the car window is shattered, it's a great scene, great exterior. We had so many people working on it to create the overhead lights and everything. We got the perfect location, and it was torrential downpours. And we had already filmed the first part of the scene where it was not torrential downpours, so it couldn't go from one to the other. So we had to keep waiting, drying off the car, and then we had two scenes to film. One scene that was when the girls first pull up and they meet the guys, and then the next scene where they're like already into it, and then the ex-girlfriend shows up, or the current girlfriend shows up and like has all at it, you know, big argument, big fight scene. And I'm like, okay, if that fight scene doesn't happen, if what happens to that car doesn't happen, I don't have a movie. So I have to make that happen. So we literally waited out the rain all the time. We waited it out. And then we had such little time because it was raining so hard to finally film the scene. And we only had two sugar glasses for that car window to break. We made the sugar glass to fit on the car window so that it broke. And we only had two of them. So I decided we had to do the car window breaking scene first. And then at the end of the day, we never got to meet the guys. So overnight, it came to me. When I was sleeping, when I woke up, I was like, that's it. They're gonna meet at the church instead. The two girls will meet the two guys. My protagonist will meet these two guys at the church, which did so many great things. It made the church seem better, but what did it do for the characters? Instead of just meeting these two guys, these two random guys that were like street guys, drinking beer on the street, now I got to layer those characters because both those guys were now at church in a previous scene, and we got to see them as church guys first and then get to see them about the neighborhood next and like the cheating guy and everything. So it got to layer the characters. See how much better it made it? It made it so much better. And they talk about the car of Brownsville Bred was it a Firebird? Like a 1980s, I don't know, some like 1980s Firebird. So when I first went to Puerto Rico on the Scout, this is all saving money, by the way. So when I went to, everything is line item. I'm sorry, everything is a line item. When I went to Puerto Rico on the Scout, we had gotten a 1980s, like a Buick something. And I was like, this is the perfect car because Manny needs to be in sort of a jalopy of a car, not like a nice car. And the car that we had gotten was a jalopy car. It was such a jalopy of the era that it didn't have air conditioning. So I paid the guy in advance to fix the air conditioning. And then the air conditioning was fixed. And we were so excited to have that car. And the guy was supposed to show up on the morning of that we had that location, which was the ferry that dumped the airport. So we offered the guy to come the night before, and we'll pay for his hotel. Can we pick up the car? No, I got this. I'm really looking forward to it. He was going to be an extra and everything. He's really looking forward to it. He didn't show up. Now I'm at the location without the car of the era, and I decided, okay, I'm going to film this scene first so that, it wasn't supposed to be filmed first because we wanted to shoot before 11 a.m., all the exterior scenes, but we're gonna shoot the interiors first now. Waiting for the guy, call, nothing, crickets. And I turned to my crew in Puerto Rico that was magical. My crew was magical. And I said, does anyone know anyone with an era car that is available? And my gaffer had a brother that had this terrific Trans Am, or Firebird. It was a Firebird. I can't remember anything. It was a Firebird, and he let me use it, and I gave him money for it, and he let me use it, and he turned out to be the driver, and it was a stick shift, and nobody else could drive the car except for me and him because nobody else knew how to drive a stick shift. So I played as Elaine's. I played as the driver double from a distance. So, these now they say, oh, that car in the movie, it was so epic. I'm like, and I made it, instead of it being Manny's car, it was his boss's car, which raised the stakes because for Manny to be loaned a car from his boss to work, he was a flower delivery guy. So that made it that Manny was now trustworthy in the eyes of his community, right? So that helped the character. And it raised the stakes when the car window was broken. It made it more expensive, and it made it more of a hardship on Manny and what it would do for his ability to earn money moving forward, which made Elaine feel guiltier. So you see how bad things fell apart for better things to fall together? So as long as you keep believing that, and time will show you that that is the truth, as long as you keep believing that, that's what gets you through every single time, all of the hardships. Just keep on believing it. All right, now.
No. I mean, this is really useful. So going back to, can you share the budget of Brownsville Bread?
No, I can't.
I cannot. Okay, so.
I can tell you that it was half of less than the John Cassavetes Award, which is $1 million.
Okay, so
I can tell you that it was under
yeah.
$500,000.
Okay, under 500. This is good. Was it all donated, or did you also have investors that you needed to pay back?
So remember, I also have a career. I made 6 figures to write this pilot for CBS. So I used that money, pooled with the Warner Media 150 Foundation money twice. They gave me money, once for the first part and also for the second half. I used what I had from a fiscal sponsor. When I joined the contest, the screenwriting contest, I won money for the screenplay. I won that. I won Series Fest, gave me money. So all of this kept going into the LLC. And then even in post, I was still raising money in post because for me it was like, I just need to get it in the can. If I get it in the can, it doesn't matter, meaning finish filming. It doesn't matter how long it takes me to edit it. So with the editing process, once you have a rough cut, that makes it so much easier for you to raise money. Because now you're actually showing the actual scenes. And I had a pretty terrific rough cut. And then I went to the LALIF, Los Angeles Latino International Film Festival. They have a program called the Works in Progress. So I submitted the rough cut to the Works in Progress, and I won the grant that helped me with post-production. And then I also submitted it to Made in New York, New York City Women in Film and Television and Media. And I won that also with the rough cut. And the mandate for that particular program was that I had to have one public screening for free. And I did that through a school. I had the School of Motion Picture Arts at a high school in New York show it to not just their school during the day, their student body, but then they invited the entire community to come. And then that helped me build audience as well. So that was before I went theatrical. But with the knowledge that I was going theatrical, now most of my films have gone festival circuit, and then I've gotten something. But with Brownsville Bread, I felt I had just done that with the short, and it's exhausting. The festival circuit is exhausting. It's expensive. If you want to travel with the film, it is very expensive. Right now, we have a film that just won at Sundance called Daydream. It's a doc that I co-wrote and produced. Beautiful film. And we are touring it on the festival circuit. New York, Miami, Ireland, Australia, North Carolina, Milwaukee. It's like all over the place. And the filmmaker is like going to these places. He's exhausted. And it costs us money to go. Although sometimes the film festivals, if they like the film enough, they'll give you a stipend or like pay 2 days of a hotel. And he's like a single guy, so he can do that. You know, it's not something that I wanted to do. I'm a married woman. I don't want to be away from my husband. I'd rather spend my time writing than going to film festivals with a film. But so for Brownsville Bread, I wanted very much to go straight theatrical, which is what we did, and we managed to get a distributor.
How did you go about the process of finding a distributor for Brownsville Bread and deciding that it should be on Tubi, for example? And what are the benefits of being on Tubi?
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can rent it as well. First it was, so there's a trajectory, right?
Yeah.
So first the film goes theatrical, it's called theatrical, and then the film goes what they call TVOD, which is video on demand, right? Where you get to transactional, the T's for transactional. So people are paying for the film. That's where you put it on iTunes, on Prime. People can pay to watch the film. Then the next thing that you go to is called AVOD, which the A stands for advertising video, so it's supported by advertising, which is places like Tubi that has built-in commercials. So the advertisers are gonna choose, and then that's how you really make your money. So most people don't even make any money until you get into the AVOD part, the advertising supported. And with us, so how I got my distributor, throughout the years where I've been on different festival circuit, I've gotten to know a lot of people, including distributors, and have, not lifelong, but long-term relationships where they trust me. It's about the festival circuit. You get to really build a community. And I have other filmmakers that I would turn to immediately and say, hey, I want to work with you. I found my cinematographer at a film festival. I love that cinematography. I want to work with that person. I found actors through film festivals. Just like when I'm impressed with something, I want to work with those people, and that's what draws you to them. So I had an ongoing relationship through my network of people, other producers that I've worked with, executive producers that are on my film, and also from just knowing them from being around them in these festival circuits. So this particular distributor was Victor Elizalde from Viva Pictures. And before I made Brownsville Bread, I asked him if he would help me moving forward to introduce me, like handhold me to Netflix, and he said that he would. And he said that he was gonna help me. So after I had it, a cut, almost finished cut, like a picture lock, I showed him what I had. Would you please watch this film? He's not from this state, he's in another state. And he said, after he watched it, he said, Elaine, I was gonna help you no matter what because I like you and I think that you're a good person and I think that you have all the skills and your heart and everything. It was nice, very, very lovely. And he said, but I actually really love this film. And what Viva Pictures does and does so brilliantly is they do, I'm gonna get this wrong, it's either 2 to 4, maybe it's 3, 2 to 4 feature film animation films for family every year. It's what they do. They're great films. They have an audience. They know where it's going. They know their audience. They go theatrical. They do the whole theatrical on-demand, advertising supported, and then streaming. That genre with that audience is like a given, right? And they do it really well, and they crush it. And so they're not into live action. They don't need to help me. He wanted to help me, and he happened to like the film, and he told me that his theaters had been saying to him that, okay, we know that we're gonna play your wonderful animated features during the day, but who's coming to see it after 7 p.m.? They lose the audience because the audience is asleep after a bedtime story, right? They're kids. So the theaters had been complaining to him about this, or maybe mentioning it to him, not complaining so much. But he thought it might be a great opportunity for his feature animated to play during the day and for him to be able to offer Brownsville Bread in the evening. So it would be a win-win for all of us. And anyway, so he loved the film. He said that might happen, like he thinks that will happen. And then I didn't really hear from him for a while, but we invited him to the festival premiere, which was at the Los Angeles Latino International Film Festival, LALIF, who had given me, remember, the grant, the post-production grant, the Works in Progress grant, the Works in Progress funding. And he was in the audience. So now I had him in the audience with the whole audience that was absolutely filled, that Axel Caballero, who runs the Latino Film Institute in LALIF, introduced the film, and he happened to be one of the early funders because he worked for the 150 Foundation prior. So it couldn't have been a better introduction. And then I had the music that was original music to Brownsville Bread. I had the original composer and lyricist actually playing the music as people came in. And then I got to introduce the film with this amazing composer whose original music is in my film. And my entire cast, not everyone, but most of my cast, who are mostly from New York, came on their own dime to support the film to Los Angeles for the premiere. They were all there on their own dime. That's how much they love the work. And it spoke volumes. And then we had a full audience, including with influencers. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. It was a standing ovation. They were all laughing at the same time, crying at the same time. It was a beautiful experience to be in a theater with all those people live, having the same emotions, regardless of where they were from. There were white people, black people, Latinos. It was just a great experience. And he got to witness the impact of the audience. He knew what it meant to him, but he didn't know that everybody else in the audience would feel the same way. And they did. And so then we invited him to the after party, which is very important that you have an after party. For us, we had it at a Lucky Strike, which is perfect because I had all these kids and they could do things, right? And then they had the bar and we had the finger foods. Perfect place to have an after party for any party. I highly recommend it. Anyway, and then my executive producer did her executive producing thing, which was like talking up the film. So what do you think? We're gonna go theatrical with this? What do you think? When do you think is the best thing? Now, before he signed on, remember, I'm like, I don't know if anybody's ever gonna help me, so what am I gonna do? What do you do when nobody helps you? You help yourself, right? So in the meantime, before he like totally signed on. Before the premiere, I had asked, remember, ask everyone you know. I was having lunch with a friend, and I said, she said, well, so where you're at? What do you? Well, what I really want to connect with movie theaters, because I need them to want to play Brownsville Bread, and I learned all this stuff about it, but I need to have a movie theater actually say yes to me, and I need somewhere to start from. And I had no idea. But she said, oh, my husband used to own a part of a mall that has a Regal Cinema, and I can call them. And she called them, and like that, I was connected with the manager of, like the district manager of a Regal Cinema here in Florida, in South Florida. And he was like asking me all these questions that he normally asks like all the other studios, and I had every answer. I know, because I knew the deliverables, what you need. Do you want it from this place or from that place? Do you want it encrypted? Do you want it non-encrypted? Do you want this? I was able to talk to him in a language that he said to me, you know more than most studios that I deal with. I feel more comfortable taking a movie from you than most studios. I am going to ingest you as a distributor. Now, he ingested, not Brownsville Bread LLC, he ingested Del Valle Productions. We were talking about production companies and how to filter them. He ingested Del Valle Productions as a distributor. So I was going to be, regardless, I was going to be at the Kendall Theater, Regal Cinema in Florida, probably in around the same time, because we talked about what is the best time. And he worked with me on that. And we talked like every other week leading up to it. But then I had the distributor totally on board, and they basically go through the same process, only they have people to do every single part of the process, whereas with myself, I was doing every part, right?
So did you self-distribute first and then?
No.
Okay.
Because
So
the
just to
distributor
understand.
then
Okay.
said to me, well, I can do it, and then this is how we do it.
Okay.
And where I was gonna, as a self-distribution, I was gonna roll out slowly, first with Kendall, and then try to get, and try to build audience, which I do. I recommend that. That's a great way to do it, because you're building the audience as you go along, and then if it's a really good movie and you're able to get audience there, your first audience is there, you will build. There are movies that build like that. And it's easy for you as a filmmaker, as one person, to go and support that film as it builds. But with the distributor, it's fascinating what I learned from the distributor, because, okay, what I knew moving forward, even as an independent, was here's how it works. A theater will decide to take you on. It cannot be when you're competing with a blockbuster film like Taylor Swift, Michael Jackson, Devil Wears Prada. You'll never get time in a theater. But when it's like a dull season, and they know when their dull seasons happen, so they'll advise you, this is a good time, this might be a good time because nothing else is coming out. And they know on their calendar what's coming out. So they know basically when it's a dead time at the theater, and they can afford to give a shot to an independent film. There are also, I don't want to forget to say this, because there are also some, I don't want to call it a festival, convention conferences that take place that are only for movie theater owners. I forgot what it's called, but look it up. You're going to find it, and go to those conferences, get to know the theater owners. Anyway, so I did not go to that, but like my distributor went to that as an example, but I should have gone to that, and I should want to go to that. Anyway, where was I? I lost my.
How did you,
Oh,
so
right,
you ended
so-
up with a distributor as opposed
right. So
to
this is how it
self-distributing.
works, right? So they'll start you on a, let's call it a Friday. Sometimes it's Thursday because it's a pre-show, right? But every theater starts every movie from Friday, and they give it a week to Friday. That's it. You have 1 week. Every movie, no matter what it is, big movies, 1 week. That first opening weekend lets them know if they should keep it another week. So by Tuesday, Wednesday, they are making the decision if you end on Friday or if you keep going. And the only thing that matters to them is how many people showed up. That's why it always matters the first weekend box office. It's really important for audiences to show up the first weekend box office. You must fill those seats if you want to continue. Some people just want to go on the festival circuit because they want to be eligible, on the theatrical circuit, because they want to be eligible for the Independent Spirit Awards or an Oscar. So when the distributor took over, even then, we didn't know what theaters were going to commit to us. Theaters were already playing us in their trailer mix, which is, you know, what you see the coming attractions before you watch a film. So I had people saying, oh my God, I just saw your coming attraction. I was watching such and such at this movie. I was like, oh my God, my movie's gonna be over there. But meanwhile, that theater didn't even say yes and never said yes. The one theater in New York that picked us up was an AMC in Times Square, like the best theater, right? But here's why it was probably easier for them, because they have more movie theaters within that same building. So they could be playing 12 movies, right? So it gives them a shot. Anyway, we found out like the week of that they were going to start us. We always said our release date was gonna be September 18th. It was on our poster, it was on the trailer, coming September 18th, coming September 18th, nationwide. But we did not know until the last minute who was going to be accepting us in. And the last week, we knew that AMC in Times Square was gonna have us in New York. That was the only theater in New York. And then we had a theater we had Kendall, my original guy, picked us up. We had Lincoln Road, Regal. We had Aventura, right? We had Arkansas, like I can't even remember. Nashville, like all the places that it went to. Chicago, it went to all these different markets because these one theaters picked it up. Now, how long did it last where, right? So where could I support the film? I'm Miami-based. I have a Miami base, right? I'm a New York from New York, so I have a New York strong pull, and it was a New York story. Normally, you start in these little markets and try to get to New York. Like New York is the epitome, right? But I actually started with New York, and that's where I lasted the longest. Here in the Florida area, I lasted 3 weeks, which is a lot for an independent film to last 3 weeks in Florida. In New York, I lasted 5 weeks. We played in Puerto Rico. We lasted 3 weeks in Puerto Rico. Yeah. So, and then, so that was a different distributor in Puerto Rico, because that was more, Puerto Rico is its own. And Viva has us for US and Canada. And like they have a whole team around them that works like marketing, and it's very important when you have a distribution deal with a distributor, that the contract caps their spend. It's like they'll say, okay, we'll give you, I don't know, I'm making up these numbers. We'll give you 80% of what we take, but then the theater is taking, 15% of their take, and then everything gets split, right? Everything's like split, split, split. So you keep dealing with the splits. But if the distributor, like obviously I love Viva, I love Victor Elizalde, I trust him. But you may not know your distributor. You just have this contract thrown at you, and it doesn't have a cap on market spending. At the end of the day, they could say that they spent $100,000 in advertising, and that comes out of what they earn. Yeah, that comes out of the earnings. But if you cap it at like 35,000, 40,000, then okay, they're not going to go over that without telling you. And you having to agree with it, so at least at some point your movie's gonna start generating revenue for you. And for the most part, that usually happens. I want to talk about pre-sales too, because that matters too. And if you can, with a bigger plan, you should try to get pre-sales, like Devil Wears Prada, right? Somebody from my building said, we're all going to see Devil Wears Prada on Thursday. Let's get tickets now. So you have advanced sales open up a month before, and now you're filling theaters even before the theater is open to you. So that's a very good plan. A lot of faith-based films do that. They sell, Passion of Christ. They sell out before they even start airing. And this way, it makes them last. It generates a huge revenue and a fan base that keeps with them. And that theatrical success, it used to be that if you had theatrical success like that, you were guaranteed a pay-one deal from like a Hulu. That's not the case anymore. Doesn't matter your success. They'll decide whatever because the industry is cannibalized now. But then moving into once you get into the TVOD, also the TVOD, the transactional, the on-demand, those pre-sales can be very helpful as well. You'll recognize like when authors put out a book, before they put out the book, they have pre-sales, right? Because if they could sell, a fictitious number, 100,000 books before they even have the book released, they're automatically going to be, upon release, they're already going to be at the top. And that's going to generate the top is the list, it's going to be so favored that it'll keep popping up. And then that's what happens with, same thing with the on-demand. Now, the TVOD, the transactional, like a Tubi, I have so many friends, I shouldn't say so many, every independent filmmaker that makes a feature film, they distribute through places like Film Hub and Bitmax. And check them out. Bitmax is more for like the indie filmmaker. They're gonna handhold you a little bit more. They have rates like you put your film in, and then they have to do a quality control to make sure that it's meeting all the parameters of sound and everything. Oh, there's so much to think about. I want to talk about trailers. I want to talk about posters. I want to talk about all those deliverables. Don't let me forget about that because those things are so important. But once you are ingested into that system, that's how that system then distributes to the platforms. Now, I'm not privy to what my distributor uses. So I don't know if it's Film Hub. I don't know what it is. But with my distributor, they are able to, with other independent filmmakers that I know, they put their film on Film Hub or Bitmax, and it got picked up by Tubi. Random, they got picked up. And they got, all of a sudden, they started making money from their indie movie. Like Nicole Sylvester, did a movie that I cast for her and I helped produce it called, oh God, how can I forget? Just look up Nicole Sylvester. I'll remember by the end of this. But black film, black director, writer, woman. I've worked with her. I was a casting director for something else that she produced, so the relationship. She asked me to cast this film, help produce it. And it's called Maya and Her Lover. And she didn't really make any money, right? Years went by, and now it's on Tubi, and all of a sudden she's getting these checks for like $30K, $18K, and she's like, wow. So, and then I have another filmmaker, Ramon Pasante, who did a movie called, I'll remember it, but an independent movie. He put it on Film Hub, and it wasn't until he got to Tubi that he started making money on it, and now he's making another feature because he could, and he already understands his path to monetizing through his last film. He'll monetize his next film, and that's basically what the independent filmmakers are doing for the most part. Now with my distributor, that stuff that getting picked up on Tubi, that just like happened for them, right? With my distributor is pitching it to these channels because they already have existing relationships. So they're able to get Like Brownsville Bread is on Tubi now, but we knew that moving forward months earlier. And Tubi has us on like when you first click on, it's like one of their preferred. That's something that would not have happened if I just put Brownsville, it became preferred. And then our next deal will probably be with Roku, where we have a 90-day exclusive with Tubi right now, and then we might have a 90-day exclusive with Roku next, where they also give us the favorable advertising, or the favorable marketing, which allows people to more likely click on it, right? And what is the click? The trailers mean so much, and the art means so much. Something else that I learned. So remember I talked about being at a Sundance panel, and something that I took with me, the importance of a poster and how to visualize your poster in advance of even making the film, and what you want to see and how important that poster is. My poster, when I was at South by Southwest, it was because of my poster that an agent said, I want to see that film. I have to see that film. And she couldn't get in because it was sold out, both showings. So now she had to reach out to me. And that's how I got connected with my first directing legit agent, literary agent, directing agent, is because of the poster. And I actually commissioned the poster by a famous artist who did a gorgeous painting with mural, Tim Okamura, unbelievable artist. I was so lucky to that I had the balls, excuse my language, to reach out to him and say, I love your work. I'm an independent filmmaker. Let me tell you about my story. Would you ever consider commissioning I'll commission the idea. Of course, it's your painting to sell to whomever your collectors are. But he's an artist that sells stuff for like 6 figures at Art Basel. And he said yes. So it's like knocking on those doors, asking. Anyway, so it's important about the poster that I say that, because it got me my agent. But then when I got to the distribution aspect, so through Film Hub, through my distributor, I didn't know what was happening, why they chose the stills that they did to represent the film, as opposed to the poster when it came to like what you see on the Tubi or whatever, right? They chose the stills. Now, internationally, I don't have distribution. I had for Puerto Rico, but I don't have distribution internationally. So what am I doing internationally? I'm internationally self-distributing. How am I doing that? Through Film Hub. So now I know, now here's where, remember I had to upload and get the fade out, the fade up, the SRTs, so everything has to pass QC, quality control, the sound, the this, the that. And what was failing the QC was the poster. Why was the poster failing the QC? Because I was using this extraordinary image that was not just a painting, but it also was part of a mural, and the mural had words on it, like, the building, like, welcome to Langston Hughes, and then the artist did, like, wrote in, like, words from the script. It's a genius poster. Take a look at Brownsville Bread on Instagram, B-R-E-D, Brownsville Bread. You'll see the poster. And the making of the poster, the behind-the-scenes making of the poster was extraordinary. But then when I had to upload, it was failing QC because there was letters on the poster. And you couldn't fall outside of the lines. And I didn't want to give it a white surround or a black surround, because I felt like that diminished the value of the poster, of the integrity of the art. And so I had to choose stills from the film to pass the QC of that. So all of these things are so unique to independent filmmakers. That's why I go into them. I'm a nerd when it comes to what this stuff is. I'm sorry if I'm boring you.
No, but I wanted to go back. We are time limited, so I wanted to go back to, since you're a casting director and also a producer, so 2 questions. At what point should now the fellows of this program have a feature film written and with notes, and now they're starting to pre-produce? At what point should they start casting as a casting director? If and then also as a producer, what makes you say yes to a project as opposed to saying, well, great project, but that's not for me?
Always the people involved is number one for me, because there are a lot of people who have great ideas and they never come to fruition. I also want to see the quality of what the film will look like. So past work matters. Cinematography really matters. For me, I want to be synonymous with quality. So if you're not showing me what that quality or allowing me the opportunity to impact your quality, then I don't want my name to be, I don't want my brand to be diminished by something that you think is good when I know it could be like, it's good for wherever like my web series, for example, I'm kind of embarrassed of it. I love the writing of it, I love the acting of it, but when I look at the cinematography, I'm like, oh my God, I could do so much better. I didn't even use the real sound when I edited it. I edited it myself, and I used just the camera sound. So now, I have all the footage, and I have plans, I should re-edit that and put the real sound in and redo it and make it into a vertical. I should revamp that. And maybe I will. I just haven't had the time yet because I've been writing a lot lately. Oh God, what was the question? I veer off.
Well, because you're a director, but also a casting director and a
Oh,
producer.
about
and you
the
produce-
casting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at what point should they start casting?
Right. So that's why I get involved in productions, right? And then a lot of the times I have to say, why would I produce your thing when I could produce my thing? That's what you have to really think about when you're asking people to be involved. And recently I'm being contracted to develop a deck with somebody. Great idea, right? And I totally go with the idea. It's inspired by true events. I'd love to work on this. But in truth, if I'm not gonna get paid to work on this and it's your story, why am I giving you my time when I could spend my time developing things that actually belong to me? I have to get paid for that. So, things like that, it matters, the stories that I want to tell. So as a producer, it's that. In terms of casting, if you have, remember I told you the story of the deck with Andrea Navarro as my lead, I knew that that's the person who I want for that. She embodied that character. I knew her soul as a human outside of acting. And I knew that it was right for her. If you know someone like that, or if you think that's the very right actor, don't be afraid to put them on your deck. And if you have this $100,000, for example, if it's seed money for you to get an actor attached, that's going to create the pre-sales, that's going to generate income, a revenue for that film, that might be a really good way to use that $100,000. If you can get, there are a lot of people these days that aren't working, that are great actors, that aren't working because there's not enough work. Even people like me, I was a guest star recurring on an ABC series called Queens. I was a guest star on a lot of these network series. But these days, it's harder to get a network series audition because you got pretty semi-famous actors, or at least recognizable actors, that aren't working regularly, so they're taking those jobs, and it's usually straight offers. I was shadowing on something, and we had these fabulous actors on an NBC network series I was shadow directing, and I got to see all the fabulous auditions from these great actors to be this great guest role, but it ended up going to a straight offer because, oh, this guy's available. Okay. And that's where it went to. And it wasn't even the best actor it wasn't the most right actor for that role. But they took him because he's a recognizable face that makes it easier for people to want to watch. So I don't recommend that you just base your decision as an independent filmmaker for somebody that's just, gonna make you want to watch. I think it should be the right person for the role, but if you are an independent filmmaker with this amazing role, and you want this amazing actor, it might inure to your benefit to at least bring that to his or her attention or their attention. And if you have some funding behind it, and you say, I'm willing to contract you, this role only takes 3 days, we're gonna pay you $25,000 a day, and now that's 75,000 of your 100,000 that you have to spend, but you've used it in a way that attaches that actor, that helps you get more actors and sell more things, pre-sale things internationally, you know, that's gonna make all the difference in the amount of revenue that your movie's going to make.
So do you have the 100,000 in the bank before you start negotiating, or can you negotiate thinking that you're gonna have the 100,000 in the bank? And also, do you offer? That's what part one, and then part two. Do you offer what you can afford, or is there maybe a minimum for somebody that's like a William Dafoe? Maybe like let's say 10 years ago, would you offer 25,000 minimum in order for them to say yes?
Well, I would say to talk to other indie casting directors, like Alan Luna in Los Angeles is a great casting director. He works on a lot of independent films, and he attaches people. And like I just do my, he's great. He's usually at all the festivals, and he also like produces them. I think through his casting work, he becomes producer on stuff. I do that as well, but it always depends on the ask, the person, and the connection. So like we just got for They Dream, we just got John Leguizamo as an executive producer on board. That's a pretty big ask, all right? But look what we have, a Sundance Award-winning film. We're likely gonna be up for an Emmy because we're gonna be on PBS, you know, and I know Ben De Jesus, who's a producing partner of John and their mutual production company, NoHo Studios, Casa NoHo Studios. And before we even got to Sundance, when we knew that we were going to Sundance, I know from being at Sundance that Ben De Jesus often takes a house, and it's a share among a lot of other Latino filmmakers. I have been to Sundance when they've done that, and often thought, wow, I should be in this house. Like, this should be where I room. So before we got to Sundance, I reached out to him. I told him about the project, how much he loved it. He also loved Brownsville Bread, you know, so all of that like helps for him to trust in my credibility. And then of course, when he saw the film, he brought it to John's attention, and then that's how they got involved. We got Soledad and O'Brien sharing the work. Liza Colon-Zayas just came to our New York Docs screening in New York, and she's like, you know, talking about the work. She also talked about Brownsville Bread, you know, because if they see it and they love it, so that's sort of the same sort of thing that you have to bring to the people. Now, sometimes it doesn't matter how much they love you in the film if they don't want to depict that character. So you really have to make it about the character. Like, I wanted very much for Elvis Nolasco, who I adore. I'm like such a super fan. I wanted him to play a role in Brownsville Bread, but the only role that he could possibly play, like the best role that he could play, is the part of the drug dealer. Now, I ended up, he had a flood in his house in Florida. He couldn't do it. But I feel like if he probably really wanted to do it, if it was another role, like a better role, he would have probably made the time to do it. Now, that is a great role, but it's not a great role for him. He would be great in it, but for his career, it's not a great role for his career because he's pretty much already done that. And Latinos these days, they don't want a drug dealer part. You know, thankfully, Brownsville Bread is not just about that. There's so many different Latinos playing different parts, and, you know, it speaks to a whole diaspora. But that's the only role that I had for him, but I really wanted him in it. But I was like in negotiations with him for a minute. And then I had other people that are more well-known than the woman who played the mother in Brownsville Bread, Karina Ortiz, who's a magnificent actress. But I had people that were more well-known that actually wanted the part. And maybe maybe I should have done that just to get more people to recognize the face that was playing the mom in it, right? But to me, Karina just ate that up. And those people even auditioned for me. They even auditioned. And when I saw Karina's performance, I was so blown away by what she had to offer in the character that I wasn't seeing portrayed by the other people, even though I'm sure I could have directed them into it. I just had to give the role to her. So look, it's always up to you, but if you know people, because I'm in New York, because I'm from acting background, because I'm a casting director as well, I happen to know a lot of people that I can reach out to, and I'm also not intimidated by the actors because I am an actor, and I know what it feels like when somebody books me, even if it's a crappy job. I'm like, yes, somebody wanted me, right? But also you have people like Kate Blanchett who do I forgot what it's called, but it's like women over 40, and they do like independent films, and they get involved, and sometimes like a Nicole Kidman will work for an independent movie depending on what it's about. So depending on what it's about, you have to use that to your advantage to try to entice them, and you have to try to you can go through a casting director, a publicist, a lawyer, a friend. You have to, when you're an independent film with almost no money, you have to more than not go through a mutual connection that's going to get your email opened. When I, as a casting director, go to pitch to people that I don't know, I just write on the subject matter, fully funded film offer to such and such. So the fully funded matters more than not, but then as a casting director, I have been lied to and told that it was fully funded when it was not. And then I had all these people lined up, and then I was like, how could you lie to me? And it, at the end of the day, the person said, I'll call the agents. I was like, what? You think you're gonna call the agents? I'm gonna call the agents and tell them that, the deal fell apart. And I did have to do that. At the time, I was so upset by it. I was really upset by it. But then the project was so good, I turned around and I said to him, if the funding is not there, I will fund it if I will direct this. Like, that's how much I love this project. I loved it. And the writer today is very well known in the industry and writes for multiple series that like big series. I was able to recognize the quality of writing that was there, despite the fact that I was lied to as a casting director, which really made me upset because that's how I generate my income. It's my parallel track career that helps me fund my own work. And I cast for a lot of things, commercials, anything I cast for, like clients come to me. So I expect agents to be able to trust me. So when that's marred, that really upsets me. But in a way, I sort of like hurt that relationship with the writer. He heard it with me, but I probably heard it with him because I was really upset. I was like, how dare you? How could you lie to me like that? To tell me that you had the funding. I met with him, the director. I had all these people lined up, and it was really upsetting to me. But, que sera, sera. But start right away. Know who you're going to ask. Know who you want to ask. You could start the casting process as soon as you feel like the script is locked and you have like stuff to work to casting materials like scenes for each character. You should have like the scenes that you want for each character. Just put up to 3 pages, up to 2, maybe 3 scenes, but I would say up to 2 scenes, or unless it's a 1-page scene, you could do 3 scenes, but no more than 7 pages per character. You X out, what you don't want, like take it right from the script, put it into you could do this right now for yourself, put it into a file folder, sides for this character, sides for that character, sides for that character. Make the script available as well, because a lot of I know when I get a script even today, when I get a script for a character, when I get the sides, I always say, is there a full script available? I want to read the script. I mean, I know I would do it no matter what because it's a network, right? But it will give me clues as to the rest of the tone of the show. Like, I just auditioned for something and it was a great role, and up until I read the whole script, I didn't really grasp how those scenes should be depicted. So yeah, that's a whole other
That's a
thing.
different
But
workshop.
but create those scenes for that particular character, and then when the time comes that you are in casting, it's already there. You don't have to scramble to do the work. Also, create the character breakdowns. Now, if you're an independent filmmaker and you give me the character breakdowns and the scenes, is it easier for me as a casting director to say, yes, I'm going to help you? Yeah.
What do you look for in a character breakdown?
The character description, the ages, you could say, like, think Julia Roberts, early 30s, any ethnicity, female. You know, sometimes there's a height requirement. Maybe it's a basketball player and they must be over 6 feet tall or something like that. Must be 18 to play 14. It's because you don't want to get into like the hiring of children and then you have to deal with their parameters of how often you can have them on set and how many breaks you take and all that. Yeah, exactly. So those are things, those are big obstacles that you have to deal with when you're independent filmmaking. It only makes it harder. But you can, if you have all those things readily available, I'll say to the filmmaker, can I see a pitch deck? Let me see these. I want to read the whole script, but if you have all these things, that makes it easier for me, because when I'm putting out my breakdown, I do it through casting platforms, professional casting platforms, and then I also send it to agents. And then sometimes I'm looking at casting directors. I'm a Casting Society of America casting director. We get all of the graduating student showcases. So like if you're graduating from Yale Drama, I get invited to those Yale Drama graduations. That's why do I want to go see a one-woman play, right? That's what we talked about in the beginning, to see one person, when I could see this fleets of graduating newbies from Yale Drama. And now I could watch them online. I don't even have to see them on person. They all get sent to me. I can open up my casting platform right now and show you hundreds of showcases from all the colleges with graduating students, and I could look at all their pictures, their resumes, I could look at their scenes, I could look at their monologues, I could do all of that, and it depends on what the work is and how hard the character is to find. A lot of the time, I will also put my castings on my Del Valle Casting Instagram, because I have like 6,500 organic followers that will share my stuff. And then if I'm really desperate, I share it with Elaine Del Valle, director, where I have 17,500 followers. Not that that's a lot, but if you think about it in the scope of people who know me as a director, writer, or casting director, or producer, when I need something, they then share it. And once it gets shared, then I start getting hits like nobody's business. And a lot of the times, like I just did something for Toyota RAV4, and we were looking for 3 different people, all people who teach classes or like have businesses where they get other people involved, or like are part of teams, or like team captains. One of them was sports, the other one had to be water related, the other one was craft related, like a painting class or something. And I reached out to my community, and I got so many people. I got like surfers, people who own surf shops, I got a mermaid, a person who teaches mermaiding. Yeah, and they like that's one of the people who got the job. Another person, that girl was in California. Another guy like does like safaris where he goes and like helps animals. Like, where was I gonna get those people? I'm not gonna get them from professional actors. And then I had one person who was like a softball team captain, and they were so great. These are like real people, just like and I make it easy for them to audition by showing them, like giving them questions to answer during their audition. Just like, talk to me, answer this question. And then I give that to my client decides. So it's a whole process, but you can use your social media, You can hire a professional casting director. You can, as an independent producer, talk to professional casting platforms to say, I am producing this movie and I would like to generate this. Now, will you get as many leads as I will because people know my name? No, but you will get some. And there are so many people, there are tens of hundreds of thousands of actors on that platform, people who aren't even skilled. So like, if you're a child, how many parents want to see something and then want to get their child involved? For the lead in Brownsville Bred, the first lead, that was her first movie ever. And before that, I gave her her first voiceover job, and she's the lead in an animated series that's now in its 3rd season. Yeah, basically her whole college is paid for, and she was 8 years old when she got the job.
So, and I'm going to open it. We have about half an hour left, and I'll open it to the audience for questions. So, final question. If somebody's pitching you a project, what kind of materials should they have for you to become a producer? And where do you think they fail when they pitch outside of, where do you think the biggest failure is?
So I always like to start with a pitch deck because it gives me visuals, it gives me characters, it gives me set, tone, all of that stuff tells me about if you follow me on Substack, I have a Substack, and I have, one of my most popular Substacks is, like the pitch deck, it's called The Pitch Deck is the Work. And I say that the pitch deck is the work a lot because when I'm creating something, in the pitch deck, I will find out right away what's missing, what's wrong, where's the hole. So rather than wait as I'm writing the entire script and, I can't write that, because the script should always be, but therefore. Every scene has to be, but this happens, therefore that happens. It can't just be random. That's how you follow, that's how you're able to follow. But when you're writing, it takes so long to write each scene, right? So that becomes the harder, right? But in the pitch deck, you can get right away you can line out every scene that matters, what needs to happen, but therefore in a couple of sentences. And then you're basically, in that pitch deck, you're writing the treatment for yourself. In that pitch deck, you're showing the characters what they look like, what they feel like based on the photos that you select from like a shot deck, or the actors that you select. You're giving the character description, the age, and you might say something like, ambulance chasing attorney that, I don't know, never can't pass a nurse at the hospital without rapping to her. I don't know what something like that. So you're instantly giving this like, oh, I know who this person is. I need that when it comes to a character description. But as a casting director, if I read the script, I'm looking at your casting breakdown, your character breakdown, and then I'm also thinking as I read the script, okay, as a casting director, it's my job to bring to you exactly what you're looking for, but then also give you who I think works. Because if you ever hear the Glenn Close story in, Fatal Attraction, like brilliant actress, working actress, everybody loves her, but they never imagined her for Fatal Attraction until she came in and killed it. They were like, this is the only person we want now. So I like to do that as a casting director, is give them the other, because I feel like filmmakers sometimes get in their own way of what could be best for the project.
So I'll open the mic to the audience, please. I'm going to pass it around so we can also have it for the people online. Supposedly we have a lot of people online, which is exciting. So who is first? Okay, all the questions have been answered because I have more. Any? Okay.
Okay, so I have two. So there's a theme of you taking your own shot rather than waiting for acceptance or opportunity. How do you empower your own craft, journey, and stories to get the job done?
Sorry, how do you How do you empower your own
craft, so being a writer, director, producer, casting director, etc. Journey, like the journey from being like, you know, an actress to having all these hats and the stories themselves to get the job done.
Yes,
How do
yes.
you take your own shot, basically?
Great. So how do I make myself better at what I'm doing? Right? Obviously, you taking the classes, right? I took the Sundance Lab. I talked about taking professional scene study at Win Handman for 3 years. I talked about that. Yeah, I forgot to say that after I didn't get into that American Film Institute Directors Women's Workshop, which is like the primo film directing program in America, in my opinion, I asked them for their reading syllabus. Give me every single book in your syllabus. And they gave it to me, and I read every single one cover to cover. Yeah, I have it. I mean, Instagram message me, and I'll send you that. Of course, now it's dated, but I just bought this book. I haven't looked at it yet, but I have the other volumes, Master Shots, Volume 5, right? So it's mastering shots. My cinematographer recently, and look, it like gives you like all these shots and the why of it. Because before, when I was just making reasons why I'm single, I had no idea of all this knowledge that was available to me and the why you choose. I was going on my gut instinct why I want the camera there. That was my gut telling me. But when I became a serious director, I started thinking about the psychology of the shot, because our job as a director is to inform the screen in every way possible. And that is through the actor that we choose, if we're writing, it's through the dialogue that we choose to say and what we choose not to say. Sometimes it says the opposite of what the character is thinking, which you want that more than not. And why the camera is placed where it's placed in order to generate the mood that you want to help get to. So if an actor is feeling small, you might want to put them in a position in the side of or if they're thinking, you might want to create a lot of headroom above that shot so that the frame is from here to here. You know, or if they're, I don't know, you might want a tight shot of the eyes because of something, but you're always thinking, why is that shot in my thought process, why does that shot or that color that character is wearing convey more of the story? How can I convey more of the story through exactly what's happening on the screen as a visual, as an audio, all of the above? That's your job as a director. How they're lined up. If they're opposing, you know, there's a shot called the Mexican standoff, you know, where they're like at opposite ends. And you see them that way, it's because they're like opposed to one another. They could be close to one another and it's that, or they could be facing other directions like that. Sometimes when you're on set and you only have time to do it one way, but you have to get both characters, you will line them up in a way that makes sense for that. You know, so you always want to inform the camera visually, and you could do that through books like this. Even recently, before we started the class, I was talking about a respected director who, it was his first feature, and he reached out to me to ask me my advice. And unlike other directors who asked me about distribution and other things, he wanted to know specifically how I direct actors, especially kids. And another book that I brought to share with you guys, and I highly recommend it if you're an actor or a director, is this. It's called The Actor's Thesaurus Actions. And this will give you multiple ways of saying one thing, right? So, and you want to, for every scene, what I do is, besides my shot list, if I want my character to affect right, you can't say to a character, feel this way, right? If it's two people in the scene, maybe you want that actor to affect and impact the other actor. What do you want them to do to the other actor? So you want to direct them as to what they want the other actor, how you want them to be impacted. So, for example, you could say to somebody, you know, I mean, this is filled with stuff like to deceive, bamboozle, beguile, betray, blind, bluff, cheat, so con, defeat, you know, like, so here's a bunch of other words that you can use instead of, because sometimes you're directing an actor and they get so stuck in their performance, but you want to give them something else to work with. So I often put a bunch of, even as an actor, I put these words on the side of my dialogue, because even though I'm saying this is what I'm doing with that. And it's the, you know, you're acting, it's action. So these are all action words that can be acted out. And depending on how, you know, if I say to you, emasculate him, or if I say to her, emasculate him, that will be two different perceptions, because you're going to do it your way, and that's what you want the actor to bring. You want the actor to bring themselves to the character, so you don't want to give them things that will diminish what they would bring or their own imagination. You want them to use their self to create that. And how they do it would be very specific to themselves, and then you could create other words. You have other words that might lead them in other directions. Did I answer that?
You answered it in spades. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, next
So
question.
my second question is, so you speak of your work with so much passion and pride, and for certain categories of people or speakers, there's this question of like being humble or having humility, but you know you're good, and that enables you to articulate your talent with this incredible balance of, you know, pride, understanding, and confidence. I guess, how do you strike that balance, or what empowers you, I love that word, to have that balance?
So I think the most empowerment comes from actual experience. So that's why if you're directing, like direct, do as much as you can, and working in your space, write, join contests, share your work. Share your work, do a reading of it. So like, you need people to fuel your confidence so that you will believe in yourself more. Because for me, like, remember, I produce as well, and it used to be so much easier for me to talk about another filmmaker and why somebody else should support the other filmmaker than it is for them to say why you need to support my movie. It's so much easier for me to call like a Ben de Jesus and say, oh, you gotta watch, you know, please, you got to see this film. You got to jump on board. Please join us in this mission, you know, with this, with that. It's easier for me to say that on behalf of Daydream and our entire team and William Caballero as a director than it is for me to say, oh, you got to help me. I'm so great. I'm such a great, right? That's harder to do. But the more, when it comes to me, like when people want to work with me, I say, just see my work. I speak less, believe it or not. I speak less now than I used to, because now I just let my work speak for me.
So I'm going to alternate between online questions and in IRL questions. So there are two online questions. One is about script, one is about financing. So I'll do the financing first, which is, when you have investors and they ask you, will I get my money back? How do you answer?
Oh, that's a real skill, because you have to understand the waterfall effect and international and all of that. But for the most part, when you're an indie filmmaker, the truth of the matter is you may not make any money back. And for me, because it was my project and, you know, Brownsville Bread was me, like, I don't want to bamboozle, right? We just read that word. Or deceive anyone. I want to say, look, likely this is the story. Likely you're going to give me some money, you're going to have an executive producer credit, you're going to be really proud of a fabulous product that you were a big part of being a part of. You'll come to set if you want to. I'm going to give you the experience that you want. I don't know if you're going to make your money back. Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to make my money back, but I hope that you'll be in this with me, and I'm not trying to make you go broke. Like, obviously, I'm coming to you because I know that you can afford it. And if you want to be, but that's a horrible way to approach an investor, right? So other producers don't do that ever at all. Instead, they have this plan. That's why you see all these movies on Prime that are, I don't want to say any, we see all these movies everywhere that are horrible, but they have like this theme of action, or they have like this one star, but they have all these international sales that go along with it. They understand the waterfall. They understand that they can make a movie for X amount of dollars and get this amount of dollar back no matter what. And they usually do it, and you want to do it because that investor becomes your next investor as well. Every time they invest and they make money, they're gonna invest in you next time as well. So that, yeah, I mean, you want to know all these things. I can't answer that as fully as someone else who does it all the time. There are people that have pools of money. They're executive producers that have pools of money that come from high net worth individuals, and then they get like a name. I don't want to say his name, but like a name that you kind of sort of heard of, that's kind of known for these independent, low budget movies, and then they get into the festivals and they do make their money back. So it's all,
That's not the kind of movie you make.
that's not yet. I mean, I have made other movies that it didn't matter, like the movie that I made for Mar Vista. Mar Vista hired me to make a Tubi original movie with a script of theirs. It's called Midnight Hustle. You can watch it on Tubi now. And basically, they gave me the script, gave me the production company. I was able to bring on my cinematographer, so it looks really good. But there's just so much you can affect in a project when it's not like all yours. But at the same time, I feel really proud to have done that project. I think we had 14 days of shooting on a 100-page dance thriller with action, and I had 3 days of prep. I know that the teams that I put together on the regular are very skilled people that can work at this budget level because they work for me. So I don't understand why they get inferior people who don't even know the jobs to work for that. And that bothers me a bit as if I'm directing something and I'm like, give me that line item. Like if you have $10,000 to pay that person, I can have somebody twice as skilled and we can manage this thing and it'll go much, much faster. But that's actually the very wrong thing to do when you're hired as a director to direct someone else's work. You can't be thinking like that. I think like that because I produce so often, it's kind of hard to get out of my own head about it, especially when I feel like something is slowing me down and I know I could go faster with somebody who's more capable at the job. So it bothered me a lot, but it's something that I learned never to do again. I can't go to a production team and say, I need you to replace this person with somebody. I know tens of people that can take that job, but I didn't know that that's her brother or her cousin and that they work together all the time and this is all they do, and they work 300 days out of 365 days a year doing these low budget features that they don't care. They just, like Lucy, I love Lucy when she's doing the chocolates and the chocolates are coming and she's supposed to wrap them and she's wrapping and then they'll speed it up and she's like starts eating them and hiding them. I feel like that's what was happening on that set, and it was truly bothering me that this is the way that crew is treated, that it bothered me, but I shouldn't have let it bother me. So when something on Brownsville happened that, because by the way, when I did that, when I tried to replace that person because he just didn't know his job, he spent half of his time outside on YouTube trying to figure out his job, how to not make the lights crash. Didn't know how to put up the temperature, the degrees on the lights. And it was so frustrating. But then when I complained about him, he did his job worse. Like when he was wrapping the cord.
Oh, he used his arm? Why is taking so long?
He was literally doing it.
Damaging.
To damage me, to make my life worse. And I know now, see, that's something that I learned never to do again. And when I had somebody on my early team get upset because I didn't have a permit that, I had all the permits to work, but I didn't have a tow truck tow away the cars that didn't move. Therefore, the truck couldn't be where ideally it should be, but I didn't have that. So this particular person on my crew was very upset that the truck had to move, and I understand why. And I said, I let him pretty much rant. And I just looked at him and I said, thank you. Next time, I hope that I have a big enough budget to have somebody haul away these cars. I wish I could do that, and I'd love for you to witness that. But right now, I can't do anything about it. So tell me what I can do or what you can do to help me solve this for this film right now. So I put it back on him, and I didn't get upset, like, oh my God, how could you have this person? Like, I was really upset. How can somebody be texting me from the bathroom that there's no bathroom tissue? The director. How can that be happening on this set? I was so upset because I take such care on my sets to make sure that people are loved, taken care of, appreciated, fed, because that's what I can control. Can't always control the paycheck. So, but I learned from that experience not to have mutiny on the bounty, because I could have easily said to that guy, you don't want to work here? Get the hell out. I got 10 people behind you who actually want this job. But I knew that that person was going to have every underling under him go with him. So I wasn't going to be that person shooting myself in the foot because of ego. So you see, these are things that I learned.
Very, very valuable lessons. Next question. All right. And then I'll come to you.
I have more of a script-related question, because earlier you had mentioned how hard it was to write teenagers, or to make teenagers likable, since they only care about themselves. And I'm trying to write a coming-of-age story, and since Brownsville Bred is a coming-of-age story, I wanted to ask how you approached writing younger characters for that movie, and what conflict can look like in a coming-of-age movie.
Well, watch movies like that, like Brownsville Bred. Actually study them. Study other people, other films that did it right. And try to dissect what made that happen. Why was it so right? Right? So Brownsville Bred, the way that Elizabeth was a strong part of the story. Elizabeth, somebody with special needs that little Elaine had to take care of, even though that person was older, that automatically made that character more likable. The fact that she, even though as she became a teenager, she stopped appreciating Elizabeth, because when I was a kid, I really like that aunt of mine that was at least 10 years older than me was like my best friend. When I'm 6, having to play with a 20-year-old when I'm 6, like, that's awesome, because I have a playmate and she's playing my dolls or whatever, listening to music. But now I'm 13 and I've already mentally outgrown that person. So now I have to be, now I'm like frustrated. It doesn't stop me from loving that person. But so the emotion, when you watch Brownsville Bred, you'll see that true emotion that the character of Elaine has for her aunt that makes her more empathetic to the audience. Even though she's in that selfish stage of herself. Watch Euphoria. You know, I'm binging Euphoria again now, for the camera work, but also for the character work and all the teenagers in it and how they grow together. So I watch things for pleasure, but then I'm also watching from a director's eye to like see how that's done, why I like it, why I don't like it. Watch what you don't like, watch what you like. You can't just watch what you like, you have to watch what you don't like as well.
Yeah, I remember, I'm gonna share one, throwing roses at you. I remember when you were getting ready for Princess Cut, and you're always incredibly well prepared, and that's so important. You had watched all these films, you knew where you wanted to reference. You were an emerging director at the time, right? Mm-hmm. So you had watched all these short and feature films. You knew what you wanted to copy, steal, borrow, and kind of make your own. And I was so impressed that you had a list of films that you had seen in preparation of Princess Cut, and that where you were utilizing certain shots into the film.
Yeah, and I still do that. I still do that with Midnight Hustle. We referenced Flashdance. So like we watched Flashdance, myself and my cinematographer, and we made decisions for camera and for lenses based on that movie. So that's another thing. You're choosing your lenses. For Brownsville Bread is an era piece. We talked about how to make it more believable as an era piece when you're dealing in modern day times, and you need that. The lens can mean so much. If you use a vintage lens, we have a cinematographer in the audience that's one of the fellows as well. Choosing the camera and the lenses, and that gives your feature the look. Even for Brownsville Bread, we actually use 2 different sets of lenses and 2 cameras because we were depicting a younger time, and then we moved forward in the day and age in a New York time, and so a younger time when she was with her dad. We used the oh God, I can't believe I'm forgetting this. I'll remember by the time we're done. But then we moved to another camera when we got to Puerto Rico, another camera and lens when we got to Puerto Rico, and another camera and lens when we got to her teenage years in New York. That sort of mirrored her emotion. So remember we talked about everything that's on that screen? It's also how it gets on that screen, what puts it on that, how it gets relayed to the screen that matters. Because with those vintage lenses, we really created beautiful blooms, and it was just, the way that it captured the warmth of the relationship existed in the lens. So even though that's a cinematographer's job, and not every director needs to know about camera and lenses and everything, but I love to communicate with my cinematographer to learn these choices and why they matter as well, because I'm always, and we should always be students of our craft, especially now with all the, new things popping up all the time. What can help us earn our craft better? Somebody talked about cling and all these things. Recently I had a cinematographer that I worked with reach out to me because he was pitching to the Tribeca Untold Stories, where they give you $1 million if they like your project and you move forward with it. And his entire deck was AI. And I advised him not to use that, because for AT&T Untold Stories from Tribeca, there's no way in hell that the people who rank those things are going to look at AI and respect that. You know how we have Brownsville Bread on the Film Hub now and getting offers from people, and we get to say yes or no? The first offer that I received was from an AI company asking me if they could use Brownsville Bread to develop it through AI, to develop their AI for films. And I said, hell no. Are you kidding me? And I wrote back to the company and I said, FYI, I never want to receive an offer like this. I will never accept an offer that uses my movie to cannibalize my craft.
Good for you. I get it through LinkedIn and for editing.
Yeah.
Teach our AI how to edit, and I'm like, go fuck yourself. That's my job.
Right. Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't ways to use AI to help you, but
Not train it.
yeah, but not train it, but also just, I just, as an artist, I just feel terrible about it. And by the way, if you're using AI today, if you use like a ChatGPT, go ahead and ask it for something. The first answer will be the best answer, because the more you ask it to improve its answer, the worse it gets. And that's a pattern that I've noticed. And when they first were talking about AI and the way that it generates images, they talked about it not being able to do the 5 fingers, the fingers of the hand, and it always comes up 6 fingers, 4 fingers. Oh, and that's a part of like trying to make it better. I'm sure that it will get better. And I've seen these, another one of my Substack is like, I watched a non-existent $100 million trailer, and it scared me. It really scared me of what they could do with this, and like, what am I going to be watching? Because why it scared me is like, if that's what the industry wants, that's not what I want to create, period. And I'm not going to make anything for the industry anymore. So that's why it scared me. Not because I was intimidated by the work, but I don't want to create that work. One of the first offers that I got after somebody at the La Lif Film Festival was somebody saying, and this was years ago, somebody saying like, okay, we want talented filmmakers like you to go out and film content, like any content, like street content, anything you want. And we want to use that to train AI because it's going to be used. We're going to use that. And I said, it's like, I see your path to monetization. I understand that you're going to get really rich from it, but I don't want to do that because I will become infinitely poor inside from that. And so that's, we are artists, and that's what we have to protect. But I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people are making money doing those things.
My question would be, you said you're writing a lot now, so hypothetically, since you've done this a couple of times, what is your next step? Like, you finish a script. I love this script. What are your next couple steps after you finish a script? I know you said everyone's an asset, so you go through the Rolodex and hit up everyone in your network, or what are some of the things you do when you finish a script?
So you're asking from the personal, and I'll tell you that, so I have parallel track careers, so I'm not worried about monetary problems, right? I have ways of making money, otherwise they're all artistically informed, so I'm still getting some artistic rejuvenation from that work, but I'm also doing my own work. So I get to decide what I work on next. So like one project that I really would love to make this short film that's a dance movie based on my childhood. My brother and I won a dance contest, and it was like amazing. It's like, it has this Little Miss Sunshine tone, disco music and all of this stuff, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to direct this film because I know how beautiful it'll be and how much everybody's gonna love it and how much I'm gonna love it, how much my heart is gonna be full from it. But I know that this film, to be done right, because there's like a disco involved and a lot of people and the era, and there's dogs and there's kids, and the way that I really want to make it, it's gonna take $100,000. And I know that I'm not going to spend $100,000 on a short film like that. If somebody funds it, wonderful. But like, I want to make it, but is it feasible? So what I did is I decided that I was going to write it as a short story, and I was going to submit it to places like, places like magazines and other things where I know other movies get picked up to be made. So I wrote a short story called The Lift, and I submitted it to magazines like New Yorker, and let's see if it happens. If that doesn't happen, then I can continue to generate that story in that way, but it lives the way that it lives really well in that space, right? Now, I get invited to programs, and sometimes my existing work that I'm working on, because I love this work and like this is what I want to tell next, this is the story that I'm impassioned by next, like something that happened here in Miami in the philanthropic world, like I really want to tell that story. I really want to just give this story justice and voice and breath and bring it to the general public to consume and understand and be disgusted as I am by it. I want them to understand that, and I want them to I want to try to right the wrongs through that work. And so you see how impassioned I am about that, right? So the passion, you have to have so much passion for anything that you're making for it to come to fruition. If you don't have that passion, it's never going to happen, because at the end of the day, it's only about your passion that's going to keep driving it. Nobody else's passion is going to keep driving your film. You will have to take the lead. And so like now I got invited to this program, and originally I had thought of it as a feature, but I was going to write it as a novel, so that then somebody would want to read the novel and go, wow, that would make a great movie. I know it'll make a great movie. So then I just told my agent about it, and my agent said, holy crap, that is a fantastic series. Are you kidding me? Like, that can go on for years. And I'm like, oh, and then this. He's like, oh my God. Like, the more I talked about it, the more he had me thinking, like, he's right, it could go on for years. So then I started channeling that into a series. And I have like the whole pitch deck and everything ready. I started writing the series. And now I get invited into this program that says, we're looking for shorts to create proof. We're looking for proof of concept shorts that could be features. So now I had to reinvent it to the original way. So you see how I have to, personally, I have to keep revamping the work, which in truth, if it could be a short, it shouldn't be a feature. If you could tell the whole story in a short, you don't want to just make it bigger and longer to be a feature. That's why Brownsville Bread was just the first act as a short. You don't want to do that, because if you can do that, it shouldn't be that. And the same thing, like if it could be a feature, like it can't be a series, because the feature is finite. But you can revamp and rethink it and use all of the dramatic license based on truth and all of your energy and creativity to create, what they're willing to fund next, which is where I'm at right now. Like, I want to be offered to direct things, and I want to be offered opportunities to develop my own things. And if I'm developing something with somebody else, I want it to be crystal clear what you're after and what I'm after. If I'm going to take a production stance on it, if you're going to pay me to do the deck with you and help you develop it, like, okay, I still have to like the project. I'm not going to say yes to anything that I don't think that I can be of service to, because that's just going to create bad feelings between the parties.
All right. Yeah, we have one last question.
Yep.
So please go ahead.
Hi. Well, thank you so much for coming here to share your story and your knowledge. It's
Thank
very
Diliana
inspiring.
for being a part, to having Filmgate
Thank you.
in Miami and a
Thank
thriving
you for everything that you do.
Miami film community growing.
Yes, it's beautiful, by the way. Yes. My first question is, one, do you have a script writing software preference? And then my second question is, during your first meeting with a cinematographer, are there any 2 to 3 points that you feel are crucial to discuss during your first meeting?
Yes, I feel like you should cast your cinematographer the way that you cast your movie. Not every cinematographer is most right for every movie, right? So you want to look at the work and decide, wow, I want that cinematographer to work on this. Also, sometimes you're working with a cinematographer and you will be able to reach out to a very advanced cinematographer who's working on big things to ask their opinion, and they very often say yes. My cinematographer, Dustin Ward, and I spoke to a couple of incredible, very well-known cinematographers that gave us advice, and what we brought to them were reference videos, references. When we were first doing Brownsville Bread, there was a dream sequence where, like, in the play, the character of Elaine, like, her dad used to bring them candy. It was a very important scene to me, because what you don't know about the candy is that he used to bring all that candy, not just because he loved his kids, but because heroin addicts have a sweet tooth and they must feed that sweet tooth with immense amounts of sugar. So for me in the story, it was really important. At the end of the day, it really wasn't that important. But in the first dream sequence that I had created, the play, I took the bag of candy and I threw it at the invisible character, on stage. So in the movie, when she was having the dream, I wanted to take this bag of candy and throw it, and for it to be suspended in the air and for her to walk through it. Like, how cool would that have been? Like, I really wanted to make it. And we had all these reference videos. We did it on Previs. We used all the fancy programs my cinematographer used to recreate it. And then at the end of the day, we had to lose it because it was just too expensive to have this VFX happening in this short. So I made, now it's a lot more advanced than it was then, but, every day it's advancing a little bit more. So, you have these reference videos, reference shots, reference movies. Sometimes I'm just watching a movie. I watch a lot at night and in the morning on my iPad before I get up out of bed. It's like my job to watch stuff. Sometimes I find myself on my iPhone, like just recording that, and I just send it to my cinematographer and say, wow, look at that. So things like that. I'm always doing that. And now the first part of your question was? Do you have a software preference when it comes to script writing? Yeah, for script writing, I use Final Draft. But ultimately, what you need to do before you sit down to write. Like I used to be a seat of my pants writer, which is basically sit down and write, right? It's great. However, I have learned that if you give yourself a roadmap to where you want to go, it's so much easier to write and to stay on track. And even if you veer off track, it becomes a great decision to veer off track rather than veering off track and losing. Okay, so for me, before you even start writing the script in a final draft program, you do a turn by turn, which is a scene by scene. This is what happens in this scene, and then this happens, therefore, this is what happens in the next scene. This is what she was expecting, but then this happens, and therefore, this is what happens in the next scene. So now you're writing out this journey, and it makes it so much easier. I remember when I took the Sundance Lab class, Sam Ernst was the teacher, and he's a big, prolific television writer. He does a lot of amazing original pilots and leads writers' rooms. And he said, by the end of this class, you will have a roadmap to your pilot that will make it so easy to write your pilot that it'll feel like you were cheating. And that's exactly what happened. So I had this roadmap, had done the class, had the turn by turn, and then I submitted my log line to the Writers Guild of America, which I became Writers Guild of America through my web series. Then the Writers Guild had a contest, give us your log line, and maybe you will be the one to pitch to all of these producers. So I sent them my log line and my short bio, and I was chosen to pitch to all these producers in New York. And I was like, great, I have a pitch deck, I know exactly. And then they wrote me back and said, great, Elaine, you're chosen. You'll be doing it next week. And, oh, we don't have your pilot. Where's your pilot? And I said, it was a Friday. I said, I'll have that to you on Monday. I'm just polishing it. And I wrote it in 3 days, and that's the script that sold to, that's the script that got CBS involved in 3 days because I had the roadmap. So do yourself a service of creating that roadmap first, and you'll be able to do all your solutions. And I put that roadmap in my decks now as well. I put the scene by scene, because when you get a chance to pitch to a network, that's how it goes. And that's a whole other class, but basically, showrunner says, hey, you guys know me. I have a deal with you guys, so you know me. And then the other person says, oh, you guys know me. I've done this show and that show and that show. And then the other person says, like 2 minutes, oh, you know me. I starred in such and such and such and such, and now here's Elaine. And I say, I'm pretty much the only person that you don't know. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, blah, 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 and that's exactly why I want to make such and such. And let me tell you about such and such. We open in blah, 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 blah. And then this happens, and then that happens, and then that happens. It's basically, you're giving them everything that happens and all the characters as you meet them, and sometimes you're even speaking some of the dialogue, and you really just like give them the whole story. And by the end of the 20 minutes that you're allotted, sometimes 25, they have a full visual of what you want to create and why they want to say yes. Before I got off the Zoom with them, they said, okay, we want it. And as a matter of fact, okay, so now we'll go with the story area. Story area is something else that you have to create when you're doing a series. But they said, Elaine described it in such a manner that we don't need the story area from her. She can go right to this part of writing the outline. And that, basically, I already had the outline because I just told them the outline. So then they get to tell me what they want changed of the outline. And that's why sometimes, yes, it works for you to write the whole script, but when you sell it to somebody, when you're developing it, you're gonna get all these notes that so much stuff will change, like that other main character changed. Like the main area where she worked, instead of just working for Department of Children's Services, she worked for the for the Family Services, where it was all the social services, so you were dealing with adults as well. You know, so all of these things have to change, and therefore while it helps for you to write the script when you're selling to a network like that, you can't be stuck. You have to be able to take a note. And even though you're saying, I don't want that in my script, you can take the note and make it palatable for you. And sometimes you change it enough that you don't have to, change it. You don't have to accept every note. You can say, well, I don't think that works because of such and such. I'll tell you why. Oh, okay. And usually it's just like, oh, okay. All right, we respect that. Thanks. And so that's how I work it. Thank you very much. You're welcome.
So thank you so much, Elaine. I know we can keep going for probably a weekend for the rest of the day.
And I thought we weren't going to be able to fill these hours.
Yeah, to be continued though. Maybe we'll have another one, but I know you're super busy, so like next year. So thank you everyone for being here. I hope so that we have 4 fellows in the room now. 3 of them will actually present at White Drama this afternoon in about an hour, less than an hour. So please stick around. And for the ones that are not in the fellowships, if you do, I know there's some skills here that are really great. Like I'm looking at all of you. Please stay for the afternoon because we'd love for the skillful people, the actors, the writers, the cinematographers that are in the room that are not in the fellowship. We would love for you to be involved in the fellowship. So please check out the different scripts, the live readings, and see who you might want to align with, because I know that all these films want to be filmed and they want to be, we are going to pre-production with them, so please get involved. And now this is now, I see the same familiar, awesome, talented faces many times at our workshops. So we're building a great, strong community. So I really hope that it's not just for the fellows, but other people get involved in it as well. 1, 2, if you love Filmgate, which I feel the love, please vote for us for Best Film Festival again this year. We won it last year. We want to win it again this year. I think it'll be amazing to be 2 years in a row. And as everybody knows here at our Short Film Festival, which is super hyper local, that's where we discover so much of the talent. I know you've discovered cinematographers and actors there. Everybody
discovered cinematographers that weren't even from Miami. And I reached out and I worked with them.
Because you were in New York and
because I saw it at Filmgate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So and he's fabulous. So he does come to Miami now to film. So it's kind of creating that connection. So yes, please vote for us. And then if we have any ideas for a masterclass that you would like to see that will be helpful to you, I know I was already kind of doing a list of we need a pitch one for sure. Like pitching one will be really, really important. That would be casting one is coming. Please, just send us the ideas, and we're lining them up all the way through September. So we have a lot of time, and they usually happen on Saturdays. And anything else you would like for us to improve it, or it will be helpful. Or if you want to do a master class, let us know as well. So thank you, Elaine.
You're welcome.
Always so generous with your time and all your knowledge. It's amazing to see your growth and how talented you are, and I cannot wait for the next. It's for sure it's going to be a TV series coming up. I don't know.
I hope so. I don't know.
I
don't know. It doesn't matter to me at this point. Like, you have to always protect yourself as well. Like you need a life. You need a loved one. You need you need to create sanctity within your own private life. You have personal wealth that can't be monetized, that can't be bought with any success that a film can bring you.
And can we please take a photo all together? Like we always do it. To the front. I'll move the. Thank you, darling, so much. That was really great. She's so engaging. I'm moving the chair. Please come to the front.
Oh, you want to do it sitting down? Come on, director, direct. Oh, this way?
Easier. Thank you for coming. Yeah.